We are ready to call this board meeting to order. Ms. Cicchetti, will you do me the honor and please call the roll?
Will do. Good
Thank
morning,
you.
everyone. Chair Cohn,
Good morning, President.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Present.
Member Gaines,
Present.
Member Vasquez,
Present.
Deputy Controller Eppolite.
Present.
Thank you very much. A quorum is present, and this board meeting is now called to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me by standing and placing your right hand over your heart. And repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning. All right, good morning. I just want to welcome everyone to today's board meeting. Let me check in with my colleagues to see if there are any opening remarks. Mr. Gaines, yes.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Wonderful. Thank you for this opportunity to make a couple of comments. They're sobering in nature, but I feel like they need to be expressed, and I'm here to offer my condolences regarding two tragic events that unfolded in my district. In Merced, a family, including an 8-year-old baby girl.
8-month-old.
8-month-old, thank you. Yeah, were senselessly kidnapped and murdered. The suspect is a former employee who worked for them at their family trucking business and has been apprehended. It breaks my heart that these were immigrants to America. They worked tirelessly for 18 years to achieve safety, security, and community, and I pray for their family during this devastating time. I also want to acknowledge the victims of a serial killer in Stockton who has now been arrested. His killing spree included 6 men and wounding a woman, and my heart and prayers are with the family who has been left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be able to honor their memory with you today. Mr. Schaefer?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I find it sad that there's so much violence in the world to comment on, but I want to share with you my great concern over the journalist in Las Vegas, Nevada, who was brutally slain a few weeks ago, Jeff German. I spent 20 years in Nevada before returning home to San Diego about 5 years ago, and I knew him, not real well, but I was in campaigns and we were on a first-name basis. I was at a seminar at San Diego State University on Saturday where Steve, the politics editor for that newspaper, gave a nice forum and spoke in his memory of his dear friend and on the violence that so many journalists suffer. We've had 15 journalists, I think, in Mexico alone slain this year. So consistent with my colleagues' recitation, there's just so many horrible things going on in the world, and I'm just hoping that society can only go up from here. Thank you.
Thank you. To my right, any announcements? Mr. Eppolite?
Yes, good morning, Chair Cohen, members. I have some prepared remarks on behalf of the controller, but I will hold them off until the executive director's report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Opening remarks, Mr. Vasquez?
I would just like to add my condolences. I've been listening to all these things that have been going up and down the street, and I know here, specifically in Member Gaines's district, this was a real tragedy when I heard about it, especially when you're talking about young kids.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cicchetti, could you please announce our first order of business?
I have a couple of announcements. Good morning, everyone. We are having issues with the closed captioner. We ask anyone who needs that service to please use the YouTube service for the closed captioning at this time. When the captioning is reinstated, then you will see that automatically pop up, and you'll be able to use the closed captioning that we offer. All righty, good morning, Madam Chair and members. The board meeting information announcement is as follows. First, I would like to remind the audience to silence your cell phones and any other wireless devices. The COVID-19 guidelines for the Board of Equalization strongly encourage, but no longer mandatory, that all BOE employees wear a mask while inside a BOE facility or while attending a BOE event. If needed, supplies of masks and hand sanitizer are available to all and can be found in the back of the auditorium. The public is invited to comment during the matters before the board. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak before the board on an agenda item in person, we ask that you complete and submit to the Sergeant of Arms a public comment appearance sheet located at the entrance of the auditorium. If you wish to speak before the board by telephone, please dial the phone number and access code provided on our public agenda notice and follow the instructions of the AT&T moderator. If you intend to make a public comment today using the AT&T moderator, we recommend dialing into the meeting on the teleconference line prior to the beginning of the agenda item if you wish to make a comment. We recommend this as the audio broadcast on our website service provides a 1 to 3 minute delay between the live stream and the live event. When giving a public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. The order that the board identifies public comments at the conclusion of an agenda item is as follows. I will first identify any public comments requests that have been received in the board proceedings auditorium. Then we will identify any comments with the AT&T moderator. Then we will read into the record any public comments received in writing in advance of this meeting today. This concludes the informational announcement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please call our first agenda item.
The first agenda item is D2, Tax Program, Non-Appearance Matters, Consent, Property Tax Matters. This item will be taken up in one vote. Petition for Unitary Escape Land Assessments, A, Southern California Edison Company, 0148. Petitions for reassessment of unitary value, B, Pacific Bell Telephone Company, 0279, C, Torrance Valley Pipeline Company, 0409, D, Sprint Spectrum LP, 2720. Petitions for penalty abatement on unitary, non-unitary value. E, Forest Hill Telephone Co., 0235, F, Kerman Telephone Co., 0246, G, Blythe Energy, Inc., 1136, H, Purple Communications, Inc., 7999. This is a constitutional function. Contribution disclosure forms are not required pursuant to Government Code 15626. Therefore, the Deputy Controller may not participate in this matter under Government Code 7.9.
Thank you.
This matter will be presented by Mr. McCool.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Cohen and honorable members of the board. My name is Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. Before you today for your consideration and adoption are 8 petitions. 1 petition for abatement of penalty and interest for a unitary escaped land assessment, 3 petitions for reassessment of unitary value, and 4 petitions for penalty abatement on unitary value. For all of these matters, staff and petitioners are in agreement on the recommendations, and I ask for your adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer.
Madam Chair, I read through all the material. I read through all the material on all of these matters, and I'm very impressed at how our office has handled it, that we've respected reasonable cause whenever it's existed, and treated the applicants with great respect and listened to their views. And I want to commend your office on the handling of these items.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Colleagues, do we have any other questions or comments? No? Is there a motion on this item?
So moved.
Thank you. Motion made by Mr. Vasquez. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Schaefer. Let's call the vote.
The motion is to adopt staff recommendation. Before we take the vote, I'm going to go out to the AT&T moderator to see if we have any public comments on this item. AT&T moderator, can you let us know if there's anyone who wants to make a public comment on this matter?
Certainly, thank you. And if so, please press 10 at this time. Again, it's 10. And giving it a minute here, we've got nobody in queue.
Thank you.
All righty then, I'll call the roll. Chair Cohen,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye.
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Epelei, not participating.
This motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the next item. Thank you, Mr. McCool.
The next item is I, Chief Council Matters, I-1, Other Chief Council Matters, Board Governance Review. Review of the provisions of the Board Governance Policy. This matter will be presented by Mr. Nanjo.
Good morning, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer, and honorable members of the board. My name is Henry Nancho. I'm your Chief Counsel, and I'm here today to go over the board governance policy with you. As you may remember, the board member strategic plan has as one of its provisions that the board will annually review its board governance policy, and that is what this item is about. With me today is Ms. Julie Himovitz. I'm happy to announce Ms. Himovitz has gotten a promotion, and she is now an attorney over governance matters. So I'm going to be utilizing her skill set to go over the governance policy. And then we are both available to answer any questions or any items that the board members may have. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Himovitz.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Cohen. Can you guys hear me? Sorry. Good morning, Chair Cohen and members of the board. As Henry said, my name is Julia Himovitz. I'm an attorney with the legal department, and today I'm going to be presenting for your review the governance policy, which was adopted on January 15th, 2021. And as you may recall, as part of your strategic plan, you agreed to review the policy annually. And as such, I will be walking you through the key provisions. If there are any specific sections that you'd like me to highlight as I go through, just please let us know, and we can do that, or we can save it all for the end. So for Section 1, purpose discusses this discusses the purpose of the governance policy, specifically outlining the policies that govern the board, consistent with the constitutional and statutory responsibilities, guides the board in their processes, and identifies and distinguishes between the roles of the board members and the executive director.
If I can pause you for a second, Ms. Himovitz, I just wanted to let the board members know that you have a copy of the board governance policy at your places in the dais. It's the color-bound one. For members who are listening in, public members who are listening in, that document is also available on the BOE website. You can click on that and pull it up. And for anybody in the audience who may want a copy, Board Proceedings Division has additional copies available for review. So, pardon the interruption.
No problem. Sections 2, 3, and 4 discuss the mission statement, the history of the agency, and the 3 tax programs administered by the BOE. Section 5 covers the governance principles that guide the conduct, decision-making, and behavior of the board and provide a framework for the development of policies and practices. Specifically, the board and the ED work together ethically and remain open and accountable to the legislature and taxpayers. Section 6, conformity with state law and avoidance of conflicts of interest, highlights the state laws that the board members must comply with, specifically Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, Conflict of Interest, COP Act, incompatible activities and ethical guidelines for professional conduct, mass mailing restrictions, behested payments, gift and travel restrictions and limitations, statement of economic interest, use of state resources, use of public funds to support or oppose a ballot measure. Please note that the gift limit increased to $520 for calendar years 2021 and 2022. The gift limit in 2020 was $500. Section 7 outlines the roles and powers of the board consistent with the government code. Subparagraph A describes what the board is authorized to do pursuant to the government code. Subparagraph B highlights the board members' authority over the executive director and their relationship to the agency staff. Subparagraph G discusses the board's authority to prescribe rules for its own governance and that the board may implement public disciplinary action against a board member whose conduct fails to meet the standards outlined in or in violation of the governance policy or whose conduct is inconsistent with board policies. The discipline will be at the discretion of the board. Section 8 is on the board chair and vice chair. Subparagraph A outlines the process of the election of the board chair and vice chair. It reads as follows. The board shall automatically place on the agenda an election to take place in December for the offices of chair and vice chair of the board, or earlier if there is no December meeting. The chair and vice chair shall serve a full one-year term, which shall begin January 1 of the following year and will end on December 31st. There is no limit on serving consecutive terms. If there is a tied vote, the currently serving chair or vice chair, as the case may be, shall continue to serve. Subparagraph B provides that the role of the board chair, provides for the role of the board chair and states that the chair approves the board meeting agendas and may add additional meetings. Additionally, the chair convenes and adjourns the meetings, calls the items, and provides leadership to the board. The chair also serves as a member of the Franchise Tax Board. Subparagraph C provides for the role of the vice chair, which is to serve on behalf of the chair if the chair is absent or incapacitated. Section 9 discusses the board member roles, responsibilities, and conduct. This section highlights the government code and discusses the repeal of Section 15623, which previously allowed individual board members to have investigatory powers. Now, upon a motion approved by the board in open session, members can collectively or individually inspect the work of any local officers whose duties relate to the assessment of property under Government Codes 15612, 15611, and 15613. Subparagraph A discusses the board's governing style. Subparagraph B highlights members' competencies. Members should develop an understanding of their roles and responsibilities, state laws, the agency's organizational structure, and the proper conduct of board meetings. Subparagraph C states that members should direct questions at meetings to the ED or to the person who is designated to speak on the item. Subparagraph D outlines the rules around ex parte communications, which are restricted pursuant to Government Code Section 11430.10. While a proceeding is pending, there shall be no communication regarding any issues in the proceeding. This applies to all adjudicatory proceedings, which is a proceeding that is an evidentiary hearing for determination of facts, pursuant to which an agency formulates and issues a decision. Subparagraphs E through F highlight the board members' limitations around their involvement with agency staff and staff work, the communications protocols with the executive director, confidentiality, attendance, and board member vacancies. Lastly, the final section discusses the role of the executive director. So this completes my review, but Henry or I are available to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Any questions on clarification? Mr. Vasquez, go ahead.
Mine's not so much on clarifications, but if there's some clarifications, you might want to take those up. I just had some suggestions
Please.
moving forward.
Please.
Okay. First of all, thank you for your update on this, and I would like to make a few, or propose a few changes, but I didn't have the opportunity to put it in right. I want to put it in a form of memo and at least give our board members, as well as staff, an opportunity to review these before we consider the possible changes. So I would like to ask if it's possible, I guess the chair as well, to agendize this for our November meeting, where I would, before then, hand out or make sure that everybody on the board, as well as staff, including the executive director, receives the memo with just a couple changes or recommendations, and so we can discuss them at our November meeting if that's possible.
Well, let's see. What are
Okay.
your ideas? Let's see what your
Well,
ideas
first-
are.
Oh,
Before I commit to putting
Oh,
anything on the
all right.
agenda.
The first one is just, I'd like the board to consider adding a paragraph on the board work groups and to link or attach the board work group charter as an appendix to the governance policy, if that's possible. The second one, I would like to propose some minor cleanup edits on a few pages that I think would add some clarity, that's all.
Okay.
If those are friendly, I'd like to do that.
So in order to not run afoul of Bagley Keene, what I would recommend, Member Vasquez, is if you would like to send those suggested changes to my office, then I will work with board proceedings to distribute those to the other members before the meeting.
I appreciate it. That's why I was bringing it up, because I wasn't sure if I could just hand it to them before the meeting or to
Yeah,
staff.
if you go through us, we and if any, if it pleases the chair, I would also invite any other board members who have any ideas to also send those to my office, and I can compile them and get them to the other board members at that point.
Great.
Thank you.
And I would just suggest, if any of my colleagues are interested in this, to give us all, ample time, at least a week's notice, because it's tough, at least for me, to look at something the day of, or the day before. So just out of courtesy.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer has something to say?
Mr. Nanjo, I applaud this entire collection of rules that we abide by. I think they're sound and they preserve our integrity. The Quinton Kopp Act of 1990 is very strong and important, but inflation has been pretty hard on all of us. That was 30 years ago, and I would think there should be indexing of the amounts every 10 or 20 years so that they are more reflective of the current time, and I would suggest that you take a look at that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Schaefer. I would note, as Ms. Himovitz pointed out, the gift limit does, for lack of a better term, adjust every year, so at least that part is being changed on an annual basis.
So the $250 limit used to be $100 or so?
The gift limit was $500, and I think it's now $520. So,
Just want to reorient my colleagues that the item that's being presented today is in part of the board's commitment to review the governance policy.
absolutely.
And, like you did, make suggestions. Something that I think that we need to talk about is when the elections are held. What's interesting is that we have in our governance policy elections held in December. However, as we know, this year, there's an election in November, and the new member won't take the seat, won't be sworn in until January. So my question to this body is we need to address or reconcile that vote. I would suggest that we consider doing the vote in January or February of 2023. That way it would allow any new member to join this body to be a part of the vote for leadership of this body. And so this is just a discussion item. This is not an action item. And I just wanted to discuss this with you. And I will reach out to Mr. Nanjo and his legal counsel team to formally draft something if it comes to that.
Okay. Be happy to. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to point out that there's a slight, I don't know, error seems too harsh, an oversight in our governance policy. Do you guys follow what I'm saying? Mr. Vasquez?
I think it makes sense if there's a major turnover on this board. But if it turns out it's just one member that we're replacing, I would probably support that we keep it as is. But I guess that's up for discussion, I guess, at the November meeting?
True, but what I'm looking for is deeper, further into the future. This is a governance policy that's going to live well beyond you and I and this particular body. We are setting up governance rules as a guide to help this body govern. So
So maybe
making a
oh,
decision on one isolated case, to stick with your example, you're saying, hey, if one person just comes in, we don't need to wait. But what I'm saying is that we need to look at the policy in its entirety, because that is what it is. This election cycle, in another 4 years, when everyone is termed out, it will be a different situation. So it would literally be like how it was when we came in. The previous board allowed us, a new board, to come in, take a seat, and then we decided how that leadership was going to unfold. According to our governance rules right now, that courtesy doesn't exist. So that is why I'm bringing up this conversation.
maybe a suggestion might be, in the event of, let's say, November, where, let's say, who knows, right? Because it's all left up to the voters. If there is a drastic change of maybe more than 2 members, that we consider your suggestion.
Well, we
As
never
a
know.
policy, right?
I think as a policy, I think drastic or indrastic, one person or 4 members, I think that's inconsequential. Either I think we need to discuss what is best for the future of the Board of Equalization and its elected members. Mr. Nanjo, I don't know if you have any experience, or I think you were part of the transition prior to this. This is with the class of 2018. We were sworn in January of 2019, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was in January, or was it in February that we took that vote?
I think you were sworn in January. I believe the vote occurred in February.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what
So-
I was thinking. So, do you have any insight that you could share with us?
Well, I mean, there are a couple items I would just point out to the board, which is, obviously, this is the board policy, so you're free to change it at any time. So, for example, if you do hold your elections in December, hypothetically, as suggested in the current policy, and then there's a desire to allow maybe some of your new members to participate, you could always hold another election in the earlier part of the year. So that is something that you can always do.
How does that work with the board governance structure as it exists right now?
Well, again, like I said, the board governance policy, is just that, a board policy. So the board can either make a temporary change or a permanent change at any time. So just because you have a published, so to speak, board governance policy doesn't mean it's set in stone and you can never change it.
I understand.
The other issue that I would have you keep in mind is it's always challenging if the election isn't until January or February, then that means again, hypothetically, that means the current chair would have to serve until that time, because one of the things that happens in between the board meetings, as you know, Chair Cohen and board members, is that there's a lot of planning as to what's on the agenda and scheduling and things of that nature. So I believe one of the reasons that November, December was suggested was so that when we go into the new year, we have an existing leadership structure that we can consult regarding scheduling. So those are just 2 points that I know came up in discussions at various points regarding the governance policy.
I see.
Excuse me if I may, I know that there has been different iterations of the governance policy. We, as legal, did not draft this. This is your policy. Prior iterations had different methods for electing chairs, some of them just being an automatic transition, which I believe is what it was prior to this one, where it just went by district number and you rotated through that way. So again, this is your policy as a board, and it's something that you guys can discuss and change over time at each meeting if you
So
wanted,
desired.
So you're not tied to whatever is in here every time, but for consistency, there should be some agreement on it, like Henry suggested, for the simple fact of transitioning between the November, December into January, February.
Okay, thank you very much. I fully understand that. I think the example that Mr. Nanjo uses, we certainly, the board governance policy covers that, if I remember correctly. I think Mr. Gaines presided over the meeting until there was an election. So
Right.
having one be a steward of the ship, that is something that we can reconcile in December, for
Sure.
example. So I'm not so much worried about that. I wonder, as our legal counsel, if you have any other advice to changes that we need to make to the governance policy as we're reviewing this document today.
Upon my review, I don't see anything that critically needs to be changed.
Okay.
Member Vasquez made a suggestion about putting the work group information in there. That would
Yes.
probably be appropriate if the board continues to want to have work groups. That's appears to be an integral part of this board's business, so that would be an appropriate change. But other than that, we do, from time to time, review the governance policy to make sure that it is current with current law, that it's timely, that there are no issues, and I'm not aware of any. Are you, Ms. Himovitz?
Other than the gift amount change, I didn't find anything at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Ms. Himovitz is correct. At the time, I neglected to mention that the time that you folks, this current board, the honorable members, joined the Board of Equalization, I believe the policy at that time was a automatic rotation based in order of district number. So again, it's a board policy. You can do whatever you want to do along those lines, and if there are any legal issues, I of course would let you know about that.
Thank you. Are there any, did you complete your review, or is there more for you to present to
No,
us?
that's all we have.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Is there any questions or comments or anything on there, on this end down here? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Great, and if it meets with your approval, Chair Cohen, if the board members want to send their suggestions to me, I will compile them and make sure that they're distributed to the board members before the next meeting.
Thank you. So, board members, think about if you have any recommendations to send to Mr. Nanjo. Mr. Eppolite, if you have any recommendations or any ideas, please let us know also. Mr. Eppolite,
Absolutely.
thank you. All right.
Great.
Let's continue.
Thank you very much,
You're
Chair
welcome.
Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer, and honorable members. Thank you, Ms. Himovitz.
Thank you.
Before we go to the next item, I am going to go out to the public to see if we have any public comment on this item.
Okay.
AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item.
Thank you, and if so, please press 10 at this time. Again, it'd be 10 on your telephone keypad. And currently nobody in queue.
Thank you.
Mr. Keddy, please call the next item. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Administrative Session J, Administrative Consent Agenda J1, Adoption of the Board Meeting Minutes for September 27, 28, 2022. The minutes of the meeting were attached to the public agenda notice for your consideration.
All right, colleagues, is there any discussion or anything that you'd like to note in the minutes or change? All right, seeing none. Excuse me. Is there a motion on this item? A motion to adopt the September 27th, 28th board meeting minutes?
So approved.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Mr. Vasquez and approved by Mr. Schaefer. Let's go to public comment.
AT&T moderator, is there anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
And again, it's 10. And currently nobody in queue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's call the roll.
Chair Cohen,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Member Gaines,
Aye?
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Eppolite.
Aye.
Great, thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, members. Mr. Keddy, please call the next item.
Alrighty, the next item on the agenda is J, Administrative Consent Agenda J2, Adoption and Presentation of Retirement Resolution, Retirement of Patricia Lumsden. I have her resolution that I'm going to read into the record.
Please.
Honoring Patricia Lumsden on her retirement. Whereas Patricia Lumsden, Chief of the County Assessed Properties Division, will retire on December 1st, 2022, after 14 years of outstanding and meritorious service to the state of California and the California Board of Equalization. Whereas Patricia began her career with the California State Board of Equalization on June 26, 2008, as an associate property appraiser in the Asset Practices Survey Unit. And whereas, as a result of diligent work and demonstrated ability, she advanced to positions of increasing responsibility, first earning appointment to the position of Senior Specialist Property Appraiser in April 2011. And after ably serving the Assessment Practices Survey Unit, she moved to the Welfare Exemption Section in September 2014, advancing to the position of Supervising Property Appraiser. And whereas, in recognition of her outstanding leadership skills and proven professionalism, she was appointed to the position of Principal Property Appraiser in the Assessment Services and Training and Certification Unit in February 2019, and Division Chief of the County Assessed Properties Division in April 2020. And whereas, the California State Board of Equalization has greatly benefited from Patricia's knowledge, experience, dedication, and integrity, all while setting an example of quality, exceptional service, and earning the respect of management, coworkers, and peers. Therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the board, do hereby extend to Patricia Lumsden our sincere and grateful appreciation for her dedicated services to the California State Board of Equalization and to the state of California. Our congratulations on her well-earned retirement and our best wishes to her continued success, happiness, and good health in the years to come. Adopted in Sacramento, California today, October 18th, 2022.
That's amazing. Ms. Lumsden, would you like to come down? Try not to skip so fast.
Yeah, it's signed.
It's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
I first wanted to see if the executive director had any remarks. If you do, you're welcome to say some things before the board makes a few remarks. We'll make this as painless as possible. I could see the angst and the anxiety on your face, Ms. Lumsden.
Hot seat. Thank you, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer.
Yes.
Yvette Stower, Executive Director. Thank you for recognizing Patty, our Chief of County Assessed Properties Division, by presenting her with this lovely resolution. I know I speak for the entire BOE team that while we are sad to see her go, we are also very happy for her and what's to come in her well-deserved retirement. Her depth of knowledge in property tax assessment, her professionalism in dealing with county assessors' offices and the public, and her amazing leadership of the entire team has been a very positive experience and a very long-lasting impact on the BOE. In addition, she has contributed so much and was instrumental in rebuilding the BOE after its restructuring and has implemented effective changes that will carry on as part of her legacy. Once again, on the behalf of the entire BOE team, congratulations, Patty, on your well-deserved retirement. You will be missed.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Ms. Lumsden, I too want to just echo a few of the remarks from the executive director. You've seen a lot of transition in this body, and yet you have been one of the senior staff members that have remained steadfast. People enjoy your trainings. As a matter of fact, as you know, we've been pushing and asking for more. And, we are working through the constraints that we have, but this is a real pivotal moment of transition, and I hope that you're excited. I'm excited for you, and this is a moment where you get to step back and review your life's work, and I hope it's a prideful moment. You have had a positive impact on many Californians' lives, even if they don't know it. So I want to commend you and celebrate you in this moment for your hard work. Dedicating your life to public service is not an easy job. And being a teacher, being a trainer, working in this particular space is not an easy job, but you have risen to the occasion and have fully executed it in a brilliant way. I've enjoyed working with you, and I've enjoyed watching you work. Of listening to you speak on panels, working with the assessors and the Assessors Association. It's really been been a joyful moment for me, and I just wanted to let you know that. Let me see if my colleagues have. Mr. Vasquez has something to say.
Hey, Lumpson, what do I say here? I mean, first of all, just sincere congratulations. I mean, I think it's been a real joy, at least when I came in here as a freshman in 2018. You were such an asset to my office and to my district, and I really appreciate your service. And I know you've worked very hard in this position for many, many years, and you're leaving some huge, huge shoes to fill. But I hope, and I know Executive Director is probably going to tap you for some assistance down the road as you retire, but really appreciate all the hard work you've put into the BOE, because you've really helped us in terms of fulfilling our mission as the new BOE. And I just wanted to thank you for that. And sad to see you go, but I'm sure you have a lot to do in your retirement, and wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
Mr. Epelay, if you'd like to say some more comment.
Sure. Patty, in coming back, it was good to see a familiar face. But I wish you all the best in your retirement. Many years of dedicated service to the Board of Equalization, but many years to come in retirements. Best wishes to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gaines?
Patty Lumpson, thank you so much for everything you've done while we've been here. I really appreciate your dedication. You know, we talked a lot about what was happening with education and helping our county assessors and our own staff in getting the education that they needed. And just so encouraged to see so much progress that was made over the course through the pandemic, for which we had to adjust to, and getting innovative and coming up with ideas in terms of how we can still serve the needs of those that need to take their classes, and then accelerating that past the pandemic. So thank you so much for the time you've dedicated here. I did want to hear a little bit about what your plans are. You have some ideas of what you're going to do?
This time I have a lot of things to do that have to do with more some personal matters, you know, helping my father transition over to, we've just got done moving him closer to us. I actually moved myself to the San Luis Obispo area, and I'm looking forward to retiring there with the rest of my family.
Wonderful.
We have 2 siblings that live over there as well. So,
Fantastic.
So yeah, we'll be transitioning that. As a matter of fact, on my day after I leave, I will be helping move my dad into his new apartment. Wow. So that will be the start of my exciting retirement.
You're gonna still work hard.
Yeah, so, but no, I appreciate all the nice comments, and I've enjoyed working with all of you, and I've really enjoyed working with the BOE all these years, and appreciate all the opportunities that they have given me, and a lot of the successes that I've had are because I've had great staff working with me, and also great, I can't even think of the right word, but a great team working with me as well. Not only just the staff, but also the other supervisors and managers along the way, and I really appreciate all of them, so.
Well,
thank you.
I'm delighted to welcome you into the BOE District 2, down in San Luis Obispo. We get down there pretty often.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Madam Chair.
It is, yeah. Thank you so much.
Mr.
Thank you.
Schaefer?
Yes, Ms. Lumpson, I was a new kid on the block when I got here 4 years ago, and it's so nice to have somebody who's, with your experience, you know, to give kindness and help to our office as you have done. we're all prohibited from serving more than 8 years in the public service, and your 14 gives you, special standing. Also, I'm very, very impressed that you were here in 2017 when about 95% of our personnel disappeared in the reorganization, and that gives you a unique insight into what we are doing as survivors. So I want to wish you well in your retirement, and I look forward to retirement someday too. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
All right, well, thank you very much. We've got a, Ms. Cicchetti?
Opportunity for a photo session, if the board members wouldn't mind stepping down to
We
take a
don't mind.
quick,
We'll take a 5-minute recess, 10-minute
yes.
recess. Thank you.
Yes, recess.
All right, there we go. Let's reconvene, everyone. Good morning. It's 10:08. Ms. Cicchetti?
We need to complete the resolution for
Yes, we
Ms.
do.
Lumstead.
Yes.
We stopped to just take a photograph. We have to take a motion to adopt it.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adopt the retirement resolution for Ms. Patricia Lumsden?
So moved.
All right, made by
Second.
Mr. Vasquez, second by who? Mr. Gaines?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to go out to the AT&T moderator to see if we have any public comment on this. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item. AT&T moderator?
Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you. We're looking to
Thank
see
you.
if we, Is there anyone on the line
Correct.
who'd like to
Thank
make
you.
a comment on the last item, J2?
Again, it is 1-0 at this time. And currently nobody in queue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All
Ready
right.
to take roll?
Yes, please.
The motion was to adopt the resolution of Patricia Lumstead. Chair Cohen?
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer? Member Gaines?
Aye.
Member Vasquez?
Aye.
Deputy Controller Epelite?
Aye.
All right, this motion passes unanimously. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the other administrative matters.
The next item on the agenda is K, Other Administrative Matters, K1A, Executive Director's Report, Organizational Update, Report on the Status of Pending and Upcoming Organizational Priorities. This matter will be presented by Ms. Stowers.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer, and members. I am Yvette Stowers, Executive Director. For today's report, I will provide an update on our presentation to the California Society of Enrolled Agents, and I will then provide highlights of upcoming meetings of note. On September 29, 2022, the BOE participated in the California Society of Enrolled Agents Annual State Tax Agency Liaison Meeting. There were over 100 enrolled agents statewide attending this virtual meeting. I gave a brief overview of the BOE, followed by a presentation from the Property Tax Department staff, who gave an informative presentation on Proposition 19, and I would say it was well received. Our taxpayer rights advocate also highlighted our recently updated information sheets on property tax savings and ways to reach her office. This was our first appearance at this annual event, and I believe it provided an excellent opportunity for our outreach to our stakeholders on the agency's role in property tax and other important tax information. We would like to thank the California Society of Enrolled Agents for inviting BOE to participate, and we look forward to next year's meeting. Next, members, I'd like to highlight a few important dates of note. Members, as you know, tomorrow is your annual meeting with the assessors, and this is a meeting that is required under Government Code Section 15607. This annual meeting will provide a good opportunity for a formal and informal dialogue amongst the members of the Board of Equalization and the 58 county assessors. This conversation will be regarding the administration of property tax assessments and taxation law. The first half of the meeting agenda will include public presentations and discussion, followed by the second half of the meeting for county assessors and the board members to meet collectively. Then on November 2nd through the 4th, the California Lawyers Association will hold its annual meeting of Tax Bar and Tax Policy Conference in San Diego, California. BOE Chief Counsel Henry Najal will be participating as part of the Chief Counsel Roundtable discussion. He will be accompanied with other Chief Counsels for the California tax agencies. And finally, members, on November 14th is the annual California Assessors Association Conference, which will be held in Solano County. I will continue to keep your offices up to date on the details of these upcoming events. Lastly, members, sad, very sad. As I shared earlier, a former BOE employee, Rosemarie Kinney, passed away last week on Monday, October the 10th. Rosemarie was an employee of the BOE for over 28 years, most recently as a property tax legislative analyst. She also worked as a senior consultant for the Assembly Committee on Revenue and Taxation before she retired from state service in November 2020. Rosemarie was a brilliant and well-known property tax expert who was also certified as an advanced appraiser by the BOE. She was a caring colleague, mentor, and friend to many, and she will be deeply missed by all of those who knew her and loved her. She is survived by her husband, former BOE Executive Director Dean Kinney. Thank you, Chair Cohen, for agreeing to adjourn the meeting in her honor. Because she is a family member, several of my team members, when they do their report, would like to make some remarks as well.
Of course.
Thank you. Please join me in expressing our deepest condolence to the Kinney family. This concludes my presentation. The management team will follow, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. We lost one of our stars from the BOE. I'd just like to give my condolences to her and her family as well. But you mentioned in your report, Mr., and I don't know if this question is for you or Mr. Nanjo, I guess on November 4th, he's going to be making a presentation to the roundtable. Just out of curiosity, do you know what he's going to be covering?
They generally talk about, come on up, Mr. Nanjo. All the chief counsel generally talk about recent completed litigation. It's not, it's just public. Any rules and regulations that's been passed.
Thank you, Executive Director Stowers, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer, honorable members of the board, Member Vasquez. So the Chief Counsel's Roundtable is an opportunity. It's at the close of the state tax policy conference, and it's an opportunity for the Chief Counsels of the Office of Tax Appeals, California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, FTB, Franchise Tax Board, and BOE to just present kind of what's been going on in their agency in the last year. We do a very high-level overview of litigation, regulations, any kind of new news that's going on at our agency, and more than anything else, it's an opportunity for the audience to ask us questions and answers about, you know, what's going on and what may be planned. So it's something that happens on an annual basis, and I'm happy to participate and represent the board.
I appreciate it. I was just wondering, you mentioned CDTFA, I guess, is present there, or
Yes.
or you talk about, and I know when I've participated in some of these conferences, we constantly get asked about, you know, our role, who's doing what, and at least in my district, and I think I'm speaking for other members as well, you know, we constantly, I just had a call last week from actually a senator in my district that thought we had some authority over CDTFA, and I said, we really don't. And I'm just, you know, I still, we're 4 years into this, I haven't heard anybody really speak highly that this new body that they created, this bureaucratic board, has actually been very effective for the taxpayers. And I'm just wondering, in your experience, as you're hearing from folks, especially on the legal side, if that's correct or if you're hearing otherwise.
You know, it's I don't hear a lot from my peers. You know, a lot of the folks I have contact with are for lack of a better term, are kind of tax policy nerds. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of aware of the differences between CDTFA and BOE. And I think as a matter of professional courtesy, I would assume that they're not necessarily talking to me about their criticisms of another state agency. So. Thank you for the question, though.
Thank you.
Mr. Eppolite?
And just to, I had a comment to make, but just to address Mr. Vasquez's question, this is a tax policy conference, so this is tax professionals attending this particular conference. So I don't think for that particular conference, there would be those types of questions being asked at that,
From the audience, yeah.
from that audience, that particular audience. To go to the executive director's comments regarding Ms. Kinney, I have a statement to make from the controller.
Please.
This is a statement from the controller. The Board of Equalization has lost a gem with the passing of Rosemarie Kinney. I have known and worked with Rosemarie for close to 30 years. She was not only a dedicated public servant whose career began at the BOE in 1989 and ascended to become a respected, sought-after property tax expert by her colleagues, but by legislators, county assessors, tax practitioners, and taxpayers. Rosemarie was best known for her reputation as a can-do person who always had a positive attitude. This was how she lived her life through her last day with us. I extend my heartfelt condolences to her husband, another leader of this organization, former Executive Director Dean Kinney, and their family. May Rosemarie's memory always be a blessing, and may her life continue to inspire. I respectfully request that this board meeting be adjourned in memory of Rosemarie Kinney, one who gave so much of herself to this organization and its mission. Thank you. Chair Cohen and members, I would also like to add my own words of memory for Rosemarie Kinney as well. Rosemarie was one of the first people that I met as a new property tax attorney when I started with the board almost 23 years ago. Rosemarie was an expert in her field as an analyst of property tax legislation on behalf of the board in the legislative division, and I'm grateful to have worked with her. As the controller mentioned, Rosemarie was full of life, and her time with us was too short. She will be deeply missed by all of us who knew her. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks on behalf of the controller and yourself. Let's see if anyone on my left, Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, if I could, I appreciate your comments, and thank you for sharing that history with us, too, in terms of Rosemarie Kinney. I'm wondering if we can, is there some way that we could memorialize her life here, her life's work at the BOE? When I was in the Senate, we had opportunities to memorialize folks that had passed away, and you could give a brief biography of those and then give that to the family. And I'm just wondering if we might be able to do something that would highlight the wonderful things she did at the BOE that we could give privately or publicly, whatever the family would desire. But I'd sure like to recognize her in writing with a document, if that would be, number one, the will of the board, and if that would make sense in terms of recognizing someone who dedicated so many years to the BOE.
Mr. Gaines, I'm not that familiar with the Senate's practices, but it sounds fitting that we could adopt some of it. Would you mind leading the board and the staff in that process?
Sure.
I
Yeah,
don't know
you
if
bet.
you'd just work with the
Absolutely.
staff.
If I may, Madam
Yes,
Chair?
please.
Absolutely, we can definitely write something up. And I will communicate with the family and see if they would like for it to be private or publicly. And I know, obviously, that we're hurting. Many of the team members will go to the service. And in the past, when we lost, another property tax expert. We attended the service and I'm not sure the exact title of this document, but something was prepared by the board and presented to the family. So I could retrieve that and move forward and share it with you guys before it's published.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Wanted to see if there's any members of the executive team that would like to go on the record to share a memory or thought about Miss Rosemary Kinney. It's no pressure, you don't have to, but if you'd like to, you're welcome.
Yes, so I thank the agency's executive director, Ms. Stowers, for dedicating and paying tribute to one of our longtime employees, Rosemary Kinney, and also for Deputy Controller Eppolite for his nice remarks on behalf of himself as well as Betty E., Controller Betty E. I'd like to say that that I, like many others, will miss her professionally and personally. My heart goes out to her husband, family, and friends. But I know she will continue to do great things and be her bubbly self, just in a different place.
Thank you. Does that conclude your remarks? Okay.
Thank you for this opportunity. David Young here, Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. I also would like to express my condolences to the Kinney family for this tragic loss. Miss Rosemary Kinney, whenever I know personally, whenever I had a question about anything that relates to legislation, she was the absolute oracle in that aspect, and she always had it at the tip of her tongue and at the very edge of her mind, and her recall was fantastic. But more on a personal basis, I could always tell when Rosemary entered the room, the tenor and the mood of the room lifted with her appearance. So, my deepest condolences to friends and family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Nanjo.
Thank you, board members, for this opportunity. When I joined the board, it was right after the split. I had two attorneys who were relatively new to property tax and the BOE, and myself, and one of the first people that I ran into was Ms. Rosemary Kinney. And Rosemary was just fantastic in that she, as it's been said by everyone, she is pleasant, she is effusive, she is happy to help. Her knowledge of property tax was amazing, especially about when rules went into a place, the history of those rules. She was better than any encyclopedia or Westlaw program or anything else I could have asked for. She helped out my staff immensely by providing us with background, giving us leads on where to do research. She just had an encyclopedic knowledge of property tax. But above and beyond that, the thing that was most lasting about Rosemary was she was so happy, so excited, so pleasant to do this for you or with you that it made you get interested in property tax and really go, wow, this must be pretty cool stuff because look at Rosemary, she's like taking off with this. So again, it is a great loss to not only the BOE, the Kinney family, but the entire property tax community. I know she helped out the legislature and was invaluable over there as well. You know, my heart goes out to Dean Kinney and his entire family and Rosemary's family. It is very tragic because she has unfortunately left us way too early. But thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your memories. Colleagues, thank you for sharing your thoughts and well wishes. I'd like to just add my voice to this sad occasion. This is a tremendous loss. To the Kinney family, we're very grateful that you shared this lovely woman with us for so many years. And colleagues, just want to note that we will be sending a resolution to the Kinney family. It will be packaged in a nice portfolio with nice binding for a keepsake momentum for the family, and it will highlight Miss Kinney's accomplishments and contributions for a stellar career. So with that, I think we keep moving. Ms. Cicchetti?
We'd like to go out to the AT&T moderator to see if there's anyone who would like to make a comment on this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the executive
AT&T
staff.
moderator?
Thank you.
Can you let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a comment on this item?
Certainly. Again, it is 1 and then 0 to make a comment. And currently nobody in queue.
Did we want to take a moment at this time, or did you want to move forward?
Let's continue moving forward. Thank you.
All righty. The next item on this agenda is Executive Director's Report, K1B, Operational Priorities. Report on the status of operational priorities of the Board of Equalization. This matter will be presented by Ms. Renati.
Good morning, Chair Cohen and honorable members. My name is Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director. Today I'll report on some of the agency's operational priorities and projects. The first item is our recruitments. Since my last report to the board, we have filled 4 positions, 3 promotions of internal candidates, and 1 position was filled with a professional new to state service. We are actively recruiting our remaining vacancies by leveraging the recruitment services of CDTFA. This includes targeted online recruitment services, allowing our recruiters to obtain training and access to materials, and also participation in multiple recruitment efforts. For the current calendar year, we have participated in 13 separate informational and/or recruitment activities. 4 events were in person, 9 were virtual. We have also established a new career webpage on our website. Since July 2022, we have had 756 unique page views. 277 of those views have been in the last 17 days. So we pretty much think that our last 3 recruitment events that we did in the month, 17 days, were partially responsible for that increase. My next item is in regard to the agency's strategic goal regarding workforce development. Just as we have spent time and energy with our recruiting efforts, we are also making sure our new staff and managers have the tools, training, and mentoring needed to successfully perform and grow in their roles. The management team is committed to providing practical experience and intentional focus on knowledge transfer and succession planning so that we develop the next generation of property tax subject matter. Members, this concludes my report on the agency's day-to-day operational priorities. If you have any questions, I'm available to answer them.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on moving that agenda forward and getting these vacant positions filled. That is awesome news.
Yes.
I'm going to pivot to my colleague, Mr. Gaines. I know he's got something to say.
Just want to thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful.
All right, let's go take, oh, yes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Nani, for your presentation. I just have one question, and it's, have you found that any of the recruitment methods you've described have been particularly effective in our efforts to attract and hire qualified candidates?
I think the combination of everything we're doing is getting our name out and letting people know that we have positions. Majority of our appraiser classifications require education and experience, so it's not so easy as just going and finding a recent college graduate and training them. We need to find those people with experience and education. But by getting our name out and getting through word of mouth, we are getting more qualified candidates and people realizing that we're interested. One of the things that CDTFA provides to us is that targeted recruitment efforts where they go comb through LinkedIn and the different methods, and they seek out people for us and ask them to apply for jobs. And that's been very successful for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
That answers that. Mr. Cicchetti, I think we should go to public comment.
The next item?
Yes, if that completes, Ms. Renati, does that complete your
She
report?
knows she's got more.
Okay,
She's got
well then,
more.
all right,
Announce
let's
it.
go.
The next item on the agenda is Executive Director's Report, K1C, Proposition 19 Implementation Project. Report on the status of the agency's Proposition 19 Implementation Project. This item will be presented by Ms. Renati.
Again, Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director. Today, I will provide an update on our Prop 19 implementation project. A high-level implementation plan is attached to today's agenda. I'm happy to report that the status of our implementation of Prop 19 is green, meaning no issues to report. The BOE has a dedicated web page regarding Prop 19, which can be accessed from our homepage. The web pages include guidance, frequently asked questions, related legislation, and additional resources to help all taxpayers. As of October 16th, our Prop 19 webpage received approximately 398,400 unique external page views since we launched the page in November 2020. This includes an additional 15,400 unique external page views since our last board meeting. This concludes my presentation on this topic. I'm available to answer any questions.
Just one quick point. On Prop 19, I constantly run across folks that were really confused on this whole issue. Matter of fact, last night I was at a reception and I was talking to, I believe he's the new chair of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here for this region. And as a realtor, and I was asking him, did you know what this all was going to entail, the final product? And once again, he confirmed what I've heard from many other folks, that what they started with was something that they thought was going to be very helpful, especially for this whole intergenerational wealth transfer. And he was very disappointed with the final outcome. And I'm wondering if that's something you're hearing too with folks that are calling in and are asking about assistance.
It's a great question, and one that David or
Okay.
Mr.
I'll
Young
wait.
or Ms. Lumsden can answer for you, or Ms. Thompson as well.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Executive Director's Report, K1D. Budget Quarterly Report, report on the status of the BOE budget. This matter will be presented by Ms. Renati.
Good morning. Again, Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director. Today, I will provide a quarterly update on the agency's budget. Members, as you are aware, approximately 86% of the BOE's budget is appropriated for personal services, that is, salaries and benefits for the BOE's 193 positions. The remaining 14% of funding is appropriated for operating expenses and equipment. For the fiscal year 21-22, which ended June 30th, 22, the BOE expended 84% of our appropriated funding. For personal services, we expended 85%, and for operating equipment and expenses, or OE&E, 75%. A few years ago, at the end of fiscal year 2019-20, our personal service expenditures were only 77%. If you compare that to our current 85% PY expenditures, it demonstrates that in the last 2 years, we've made significant progress in filling our key program and administrative positions, as shown by our 11% increase in overall expenditures for personal services. Our first fiscal year 21-22 OE&E expenditures were lower than the amount appropriated due to multiple factors. These include reductions in business-related travel for audits, surveys, and training due to COVID-19 travel restrictions, savings due to reduced office space, and less spending on printing and office supplies due to our modernization efforts. Overall, we are pleased with our budget management efforts for the BOE's fiscal year 21-22 budget, which brings me to our current budget. For our fiscal year 22-23 budget allocation, which began in July 2022, our funding and positions for both the agency and member offices remain the same. We have 193 positions. Projections based on current expenditures posted for the first quarter of this fiscal year, which is July, August, and September, indicate that our personal services spending at the end of the fiscal year will be 88%. This is close to our sweet spot and close to those of other agencies with low vacancy levels. So we're very excited about reaching those levels. Our projections for OE&E expenditures for fiscal year 22-23, our current fiscal year, relies on many moving parts involving basic operational functions like our must-haves, our goals for modernization, and the reality of increasing costs. For example, we have modernized our survey, audit, and training programs to include hybrid and in-person courses, which can reduce expenses for more in-person hybrid classes that are taught online. At the same time, we are implementing succession plans for essential roles and program subject matter, which includes on-the-job training, which can increase expenses with both trainees and trainers traveling. Another example is that we transitioned our telephone service from old technology with equipment that is tethered to a physical office location to Voice over Internet Protocol, or VoIP. This technology allows you to answer your phone anywhere you're at, from your laptop or from your handheld device, like a cell phone. Once we complete gathering up all the old equipment and to return it to the vendor, we are going to save a substantial amount of money each year, while at the same time continuing better facilitation of our teleworking. So that movement is going to change our budget. We are also phasing out desktop computers in favor of more versatile laptops, docking stations, additional monitors, and headsets, and those expenses will hit the budget this year. These are just a few examples of the moving parts being tracked for our agency's expenses on a global level. And lastly, members, we continue to provide expenditure reports by unit to each senior staff and to each of your offices so that expenses can be tracked in somewhat real time. We get them about a month later, and you can make decisions at the lowest level on spending and make sure they're managing budgets. So there are two takeaways from today's report. One, we are on target for our fiscal year 21-22 budget, with an increase in filling our vacant positions that were allocated in the budget to us. And number two, our current fiscal year projections are on target, and we continue to focus on managing our spending so that we can continue our modernization efforts for the agency. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Let's see. Any questions? I think it was a succinct presentation. Mr. Gaines?
I just want to thank you because it indication that things are going in the right direction. And do you think we're okay? I don't know if this would be a question for Vet Stowers or not, but you think we're okay in terms of staffing for the role that we play as an entity? It sounds like we're getting to kind of a margin where there's always going to be a certain amount of vacancy, but are we satisfying our duties as the Board of Equalization in terms of providing the services that we should be at the staff levels that we have now?
Thank you, Member Gaines, for that question. Currently, we are staffed. There's a few vacancies, but our current staff is allowing us to carry out our requirements as far as surveys, training, handbooks, regulations. So we are staffed at a sufficient level. Could we use more? Absolutely. We get new assignments all the time. We're looking to highlight the surveys that are completed.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using staff to pull those out and present to everyone in the near future. So we will say that we're staffed sufficiently, but can always use more.
Okay. Things that would include Prop 19?
Right.
Because
Prop
we've had to
19.
implement that, and I know that's taken a lot of labor, so I'm
It
just...
took a lot of labor, a lot of calls, a lot of inquiries on what
Yeah.
that 19 did. But the Property Tax Department was able to respond to the questions, help out the constituents as needed, and along with our taxpayer rights advocate.
Right.
I do
Okay.
not see any gaps. Nothing has fallen through. We have carried out everything.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's tough with the transition. As someone retires, they might have paid sick leave, things like that, that we've got to include in our budgeting, right? So
Absolutely.
it's a balancing act.
Yes, and that's a very good point, and that's why we send out and we monitor the annual leave balance, the vacation leave balances, and we basically, when our staff is exceeding the balance, we ask for them to establish a plan on how they're going to use their time.
Right.
Because
Right.
if they do retire, we have to cover that in our budget.
Right. So you have an estimate of retirement dates and then what the
Mhm.
obligation is financially. Okay, that's great. Wonderful, thank you.
Mr. Gaines, I just want to also jump in here, and as a part of our strategic plan, I've been working with the executive director to complete the agency assessment, and I believe that that process will answer your questions thoroughly that you just posed to the executive director in a very meaningful way. So there is more to come.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Director, you come from years of working with elected officials, and you know that we're here to serve the taxpayers, more than to serve ourselves and serve the bureaucracy.
Mr. Schaefer, can you turn your microphone on, please?
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
You come from many years of working with elected officials, and you know that we're here to represent the taxpayers rather than the bureaucracy, and that when we're trying to make Prop 19 work better, we're making it work better not for the government, but make it work better for the taxpayers. And I think you're doing a good job in that respect. I just wanted to chime in and remind us that that's what we're all looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I would instead say that we have the bare minimum just to get the job done, and that we need more so that we can fully execute, so we can have more than just one Patricia Lumsden, you know, in the education training field, and we've just lost Miss Lumsden, and now we need to really step up and amplify. We're losing a lot of our institutional knowledge, a lot of our folks with sage wisdom. So look forward to continuing to partner with you to make sure that this agency has the resources that she needs in order to move forward and provide stellar service to the taxpayers. All right, Ms.
Thank you, Ms.
Renati,
Cohen.
does that
That's it.
complete
That
everything?
concludes our presentation.
Okay,
That
let's go to
concludes.
public comment.
The next item on the agenda is Executive Director. Oh, right, we were going to go at the end of the Executive Director reports. We have one more. I apologize.
No problem.
The last Executive Director report for today is K1E, Special Taxes Quarterly Report, general discussion on the special taxes workload over the last 3 months. This matter will be presented by Ms. Laurel Williams.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members of the board. I am Laurel Williams, the BOE's Technical Advisor for Special Taxes. Today, I will be providing you with a report regarding the BOE's special tax programs. I will start with the alcoholic beverage tax. The alcoholic beverage tax, as you know, is a per-gallon excise tax collected on alcoholic beverages in California. Currently, there are 10,353 active accounts, which is slightly down from the 10,648 accounts reported in June, however, still up from the March number. Most of the accounts report their revenue on a calendar yearly basis. So since there have been no returns filed, since my last report, there are no significant revenue changes to report. There are currently no appeals for this program. The next program is the Tax on Insurers program. Insurance companies may be subject to as many as 3 types of insurance taxes in California. There are currently 2,695 active accounts, which is up from the 2,637 accounts reported in June. Most insurance accounts also file once a year. The different programs have slightly different due dates, but they're mostly annual. So this program also has no significant revenue changes to report for this period. This program also currently has no appeals. For both programs, we have continued to have regular meetings with CDTFA, which have been going consistently very well. In general, we have found the CDTFA staff to be very responsive and collaborative in regards to the special tax programs. This concludes my report for today. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Ms. Williams, I noticed for beverage tax appeals and for insurance appeals that you have no appeals pending as of this moment. Do we have to go back a few years to find an appeal, or Does an appeal come along once in a blue moon, or did we have some earlier this year? Just how
Yeah.
active is the appeal business?
So these are some of the most compliant programs that BOE and CDTFA also have. For the insurance appeals, we have not had one for quite a while. I believe 2 years ago, we had one that was in process, and did not come all the way to an appeal before the board. It was settled administratively. Alcohol, you would have to go back several years, I believe even before the split, to find an alcohol appeal.
Thank you.
Yep, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions?
Nope. Yes?
Just a quick question. When you mentioned the last one and the alcohol was, you're saying probably like 4 years ago or more. What was that in regard, do you remember what it was about, the appeal?
I don't remember specifically what the appeal was about. To be honest, it was prior to my even coming on from
No
BOE
problem.
from CDTFA.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Let's go to public comment.
We're going to go to the AT&T moderator for any public comments. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there is anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding these matters.
Thank you. And again, ladies and gentlemen, please press 10 at this time. Again, 10. And currently no comments in queue.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. No comments in queue. There it is. Let's keep moving.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is other administrative matters, K2A, Communication Chief's Quarterly Report, report on the status of BOE communications. This matter is being presented by Mr. Kim.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Cohen and honorable members. I am Peter Kim, BOE's Chief Communications Officer. As outlined in the memo attached to the agenda, I'll provide a summary of the communications efforts for the 2022 Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing and improvements made to the BOE website. I will conclude with some highlights of projects the department is currently working on. In collaboration with the Chief of the Taxpayers' Rights Advocate Office, the department implemented a broad communication strategy to inform the public, taxpayers, and stakeholders regarding this year's Taxpayers' Bill of Rights hearing. For this year's hearing, we assembled an outreach toolkit consisting of the flyer, the public service announcement, social media graphics, suggested talking points and e-blast message, an image for use as a web button on external partners' websites, and web links for additional information regarding the hearing. Excuse me. We also expanded our electronic communications by leveraging the Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing listserv and sending e-blasts to those on that list. In addition, e-blasts were sent to all known email addresses associated with entities filing alcoholic beverage tax returns. Also, for the first time, the BOE website featured a dedicated banner regarding the hearing, along with taxpayers and stakeholders being able to utilize an electronic rather than paper form to submit comments or concerns leading up to the date of the hearing. Finally, in partnership with the TRA office, a modified outreach toolkit was provided to BOE Advisory Council members, statewide taxpayer organizations and associations, and all state legislative offices. Numerous organizations and legislative offices highlighted the hearing on their social media accounts and electronic communications. Members, as you know, the BOE website is a critical tool in communicating and providing essential and up-to-date information to taxpayers and the general public. With the assistance of the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration's Web Services Unit, board member web pages were enhanced to have a more modern look with additional features. The last major update to board member web pages took place in 2019. In addition, the BOE website homepage has been modified to include 3 new graphics under the main banner to highlight the Taxpayer Rights Advocate, Proposition 19, and disaster relief. This will allow visitors to easily find information by making these topics front and center. Also, updates were made to the Proposition 19 webpage to include the Proposition 19 filing requirements checklist, the TRA office information sheets on property tax savings, and other updates in real time. And finally, a new BOE Careers webpage was recently launched to assist with recruitment efforts. Through the board's leadership, a translate button to offer translation to non or limited English-speaking individuals was implemented approximately 4 months ago. The board requested an update, and there are approximately over 900 unique external page views since October 7th. Before I conclude, I wanted to provide a brief look forward. In the coming months, the department will be focused on preparing the agency's fiscal year 2021-22 annual report, updating the State Board of Equalization fact sheet, and since a new board will soon be seated, several forms and publications will also need to be updated. Members, this concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Kim. I just have a question for you. You said that this is the first year you used the TRA's listserv, and you sent 3 e-blasts about the hearing to notify those who subscribed, and you sent 3 e-blasts to all known email addresses for entities filing alcohol beverage tax returns. In addition, this was the first year you featured the TRA hearing with a dedicated banner on your homepage for a whole month, and the first time taxpayers could submit comments and questions electronically rather than paper. All these efforts proved very successful. Because we had a huge turnout, I think it was around 50 people, my question is, can you use these same tools for board work groups or public hearings when we have important issues we need to vet to the public and further input?
Yes, thank you for that question, Board Member Vasquez. I could definitely work with our executive director to see how we could coordinate efforts regarding future work groups and events. I know that for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing, it's an important event. We wanted to make sure that all taxpayers were able to participate. It was their opportunity to address the board, to raise issues and concerns, and so that's the reason why all those resources were put in to ensure that folks knew about it. But of course, I could work with the executive director to see and explore what we could do.
Yeah, I would like to recommend that we somehow make that part of the permanent communications and outreach. It seemed to be real successful.
Great,
Thanks.
thank you.
Anyone on this end? No. Thank you, Mr. Kim.
Thank you.
We'll take public
I'm going to
comment.
go to the AT&T moderator first. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item.
Certainly, thank you. And again, it's 10 to make a comment. Please press 10. And currently nobody in queue.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Ms. Cicchetti, next item.
The next item on the agenda is Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office Report, K3A, Operational Update. Update on activities of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate's Office, including Proposition 19, education and outreach, and other matters. This matter will be presented by Ms. Thompson.
Good morning, Chair Cohen and honorable board members. I'm Lisa Thompson, Chief of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office. I'm here to provide you with an update on the activities of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office and also on Proposition 19 and outreach to keep you informed. First, I'd like to share with you some statistics on the number of completed cases by the TRA office last month and provide some insight on the types of those cases. Attached to the public agenda notice is a memorandum from the TRA office to the executive director reporting the numbers of completed cases by board member district, which distinguishes the cases between the administrative and valuation category and topics within those categories. In September 2022, we completed 33 cases. 5 were in Board Member Gaines's district, District 1. 10 were in Member Cohen's district, District 2. 11 were in Member Vasquez's district, District 3. And 7 were in Board Member Schaefer's district, District 4. Of the 33 cases, 7 were in the administrative category and 26 in the valuation category. The administrative category includes topics such as creating and mailing of tax bills, refunds, penalty cancellations, defaulted taxes, access to data, special assessments, or direct levies on a property tax bill. The valuation category includes topics such as change in ownership, declines in value, assessment appeals, exemptions, exclusions, new construction, enrollment of value, general property taxation. With respect to the administrative category, and it's 7 in total, 4 pertain to delinquent or defaulted taxes, and 3 involved other concerns, such as a property tax postponement program for seniors. With respect to the valuation category, and it's 6 cases in total, 7 pertain to actual enrollment of values, 4 pertain to change in ownership, 1 case pertained to decline in value, 7 cases pertain to exclusions from reassessment, 4 involved exemptions, and 3 involved general property taxation. To provide some additional insight on the specific types of exclusion and exemption cases, I offer this further breakdown. For the 7 cases involving exclusions from reassessment, 4 pertain to the parent-child exclusion, and 3 pertain to base year value transfers for persons age 55 and over. 3 of the 4 parent-child exclusion cases fell under prior law, Proposition 58, since the transfers occurred before February 16, 2021. And that was the effective date for Proposition 19's intergenerational transfer exclusions. Well, 1 of the parent-child cases fell under current law of Proposition 19. With respect to the 3 cases pertaining to base year value transfers, 2 occurred during current law under Proposition 19, and 1 was under prior law of Proposition 60. For the exemption cases, 1 pertained to the welfare exemption, 1 for the homeowner's exemption, and 2 for the disabled veterans exemption. To provide some insight on the nature of the cases that our office works on to assist taxpayers, I offer some additional information on this case to highlight the work that our office does and how we help the taxpayer. An example of a case that our office helped resolve involved a taxpayer representative who contacted our office about property that was held in 2 trusts, a marital trust and a survivor's trust, where one of the owners died over 20 years ago, and the other owner had died more recently in 2020. In both instances, the assessor's office was not notified of the change in ownership for the property that resulted from the death. And portions of one trust had transferred ownership to the trustor's children, but the property had not been reassessed. A claim for the parent-child exclusion for reassessment had not yet been filed, claiming the exclusion from reassessment. Our office explained that upon the death of a property owner, the assessor's office should be notified about the change in ownership, even if the property is held in trust. We also indicated that although the recording of documents is not within our area, generally an affidavit of death or affidavit of death of trustee should be recorded with the county recorder's office shortly after the death to reflect that the decedent no longer owned a property through the trust. A change in ownership occurred for this transaction pursuant to Section 480 due to the death, since interests in the property owned in the trust become those of another party. We explained that the first death would not result in a reassessable change in ownership because the ownership passed to the decedent's spouse. However, the second death would, and unless the transaction qualified for exclusion from reassessment under law, that would be subject to reassessment. The taxpayer's representative indicated that the beneficiaries of the trust were the decedent's children and grandchildren. So we explained that generally in order to receive the parent-child exclusion as of the change in ownership date, the claim form must be filed within 3 years of the date of change in ownership. In this case would be the date of the last parent's death. However, since the property had not yet been reassessed for the change in ownership and they still owned the property, they could still file a claim for exclusion and receive exemption from basically the date of change in ownership. And that was based on a provision of law stating that the claim is still considered timely if filed within 6 months of the date of mailing of the notice of supplemental assessment. We made sure that the taxpayer knew to use claim form BOE 58AH to file for the parent-child exclusion since the death occurred before the February 16, 2021 effective date of Proposition 19. We also reminded them that the death occurred if the death had occurred on or after that February 16th date, that it would not have qualified for the parent-child exclusion, since the property owned by the trust was a commercial property, in case they were considering transfers of interest in the future. It should be noted that the provision in law where a claim can be filed more than 3 years after the change in ownership date and still be considered timely filed if filed within 6 months of the supplemental or escape notice remains in law today. It is part of Proposition 19's implementing legislation in Revenue and Taxation Code Section 63.2 as well. So we provided the taxpayer with the copy of the code section allowing for the claim filing beyond the 3 years, and also an LTA from 1994 that discusses the 1993 amendment to Revenue and Taxation Code Section 63.1, which added this provision so they could provide it to the assessor's office. We suggested that they notify the assessor's office of both changes in ownership events and the effect on the ownership interests on the property through those trusts at the same time that they submit a claim for parent-child exclusion on any portion of the interest that transferred to a child of the decedent, and also to write a note on the claim form indicating that it was timely in accordance with LTA 94-21 as the property had not yet been reassessed. The taxpayer representative has our contact information should they need further assistance once the claim is filed. The next item that I would like to report on to the members is work associated with Proposition 19 education and outreach for taxpayers. As you are aware, our office completed work on 8 information sheets to help taxpayers understand property tax laws and exclusions available to them that could result in property tax savings. That completed our update to existing information sheet that we published from 2018 through June of 2020 to reflect changes due to the passage of Proposition 19. They are published and available on the BOE's website under the TRA page. An LTA announcing the availability of these information sheets will be issued shortly and posted to our agency's website. At future board meetings, the TRA office will provide further updates on the activities of the TRA office to keep you informed. That concludes my update, and I'm available to answer any questions. At this time, I am going to take the opportunity to address a question that was posed to Chief Deputy Director Ms. Lisa Renati during her presentation by Member Vasquez. So you had asked if we had been hearing from people about Proposition 19 and if they thought it was what was intended. And at the August 2022 board meeting, as part of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing, many people submitted comments about Proposition 19, some of which expressed concerns about changes in law specific to the intergenerational transfer exclusion, parent-child transfers, and basically the loss of not being able to pass on the property tax savings through that exclusion for commercial properties and industrial properties or rental properties, basically. So generally, people do like the base year value transfer provisions of Proposition 19, but the focus, I guess, any comments that we hear during that hearing, as well as other contacts direct with our office, pertains to the April 1st, 2021 effective date. Some taxpayers, unfortunately, purchased properties before the April 1st effective date and thought that it was was effective basically when it was passed into law in November of 2020. Others may have thought that it was in place as of the January 1st, 21 lien date. So that's kind of where we're hearing. So when we are approached by taxpayers, I mean, we explain to them the law, and where it's shown as far as the effective date in the constitutional provisions, as well as the constitutional amendment that had it, as well as the code section. So they understand why they aren't able to take advantage of of that exclusion due to the timing of when they bought or when they transferred it to their property. So that's kind of where we at. And we direct them to our resources on our website, as well as take that opportunity to direct them to our information sheets that they can use for themselves or pass on to friends that, may be interested in thinking about doing transfers in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. So that was going to be one of my questions, but the second one I had is, I noticed in your report that the number of completed cases in September was almost twice as many in August, and I was wondering what you might attribute that to.
I think the number of completed cases varies, depending on workload, but August, we were preparing for the Bill of Rights hearing a little bit, and I was also on vacation, so.
Oh, okay.
So I was out for almost 3 weeks. So.
Thanks.
Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Ms. Thompson. And I was just wondering if maybe you could go through the process. It looks like we're in a recession state, and looks like property values are declining. Can you go through the process of what happens when we have a decline in property values and the opportunity for our constituents to ask for an adjustment to valuation?
Yeah, that's kind of more of a technical question, but as it's a right of any taxpayer to file an appeal if they disagree with the assessed value that the assessors enroll for it in any year during the applicable appeal period. But assessors by law are required to assess property at the lower of its Proposition 13 factored base year value or market value. And so taxpayers, if they think their properties have declined lower than what they're being assessed at, then they can certainly contact their assessor's office first. Many assessor's office has information available online about, an ability to make a request for kind of an informal review of their values. They can do that, or they can do the more formal, procedure and file an assessment appeal with the clerk of the board through their assessment appeals board. But that's kind of how that's, how that's going, and it's possible that could happen for, some of the people, particularly that bought in the last few years when the market was higher. Then, it might go a little bit lower. But assessors are, looking at that every year. That's, what they do.
Can the county assessor take action that would impact all property taxpayers?
I can't really address how they do that, but I think they have mass kind of, systems where they look at different areas, that have been reduced.
Okay.
I can't really, address that, but they have tools to do that with. I'm aware of that.
Okay. Through the chair?
Yes.
Would it be, could I ask for Ernie Dronenberg to come forward just to provide some clarity from an assessor's standpoint?
Sure. Mr. Dronenberg, please come down.
Good morning.
Wait, wait, save your remarks for the mic.
Okay.
So we can make sure we can capture it. Please sit
Get a
down and have
chair.
sit down
Sit
there.
wherever you want.
There you go.
Thank you.
I was just planning to sit. But the question is one that, I was elected in 2010, just after the 2008 massive drop.
Yes.
And if we had waited for everybody to apply, we would still doing applications for employees. So what we did is we did sales ratio studies of general areas, and then we came through and dropped. San Diego County at that time had about 850,000 appraisals. We came through and dropped over 275,000 with just an adjustment as a percentage into an area, and didn't wait for the people to apply, because it's the assessor's responsibility to do it. It's not the taxpayer's responsibility to have to ask for it. So an assessor that is looking to take care of things quickly and most efficiently will go out and do an assessment of general areas within their county and make an adjustment. And they can make adjustment to the whole county or just a piece. It doesn't have to be an individual home.
Okay, thank you for that clarity, and we'll have to see what happens with the economy. None of us know, but I'm just, if we're going into a decline, we've got higher interest rates. It's just nice to know kind of what the options are. Thank you for providing the clarity for me.
And right now, we're looking at maybe 2 years, the last 2 years, somebody that purchased with that. They're our target right now, and we're watching them
Okay.
closely to see just how much they're dropping, and then we might go, and we can sort by changes and then go and attack those. But that's just what we are doing in San Diego.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Dronenberg, and for your service as county assessor in San Diego.
Are there any other questions? I appreciate your support, Ms. Thompson. Thank you. It's actually very helpful to know where taxpayers are feeling the pinch, what their questions are, and how we can better serve them. Let's go to public comment.
AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this matter.
If you'd like to make a comment, please press the 1 followed by the 0, 10 for any public comments. One moment, please. There are none in queue at this time. Madam Chair, please continue.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Ms. Cicchetti, do we have, Ms. Cicchetti, please call the next item.
The next item is Chief Counsel Report, K4A, Legal Workload Quarterly Report, general discussion on the legal department's workload over the last 3 months. This matter will be presented by Mr. Nanjo.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning again, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer, and members of the board. Henry Nanjo, Chief Counsel, and I'm providing my quarterly update to the board as to what happened in the third quarter of 2022 for the legal team. First of all, I want to thank my team for their contribution and efforts in the third quarter. We currently have 2 vacancies in which we are working towards filling in the fourth quarter and the beginning of the first quarter of 2023. One of them was created by the promotion of Ms. Himovitz, and the other one was one of our attorneys decided to take another position, so we have those 2 vacancies. Now, on to the legal department's workload. We began our 2022 state-assessed appeals season in the third quarter with 19 petitions this year. We have filed 18 briefs with SAPD and Board Proceedings Division, and staff will be holding our appeals conferences and oral hearings in the fourth quarter. As far as litigation, in the litigation area, as you know, we provide confidential monthly written litigation reports to the board, as well as providing appropriate public updates to our website on the BOE's public litigation roster. As you are aware, during the third quarter, the lawsuit with Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway Company was dismissed, and the BOE's public litigation roster has been updated as of this month. Regarding the lawsuit with La Paloma, the reply brief was filed on October 7th, and the oral argument has been moved to December 16th, 2022. We continue to closely monitor and handle the board's litigation cases, and will continue to keep you informed and updated as to any developments, either in closed session or via the confidential memorandum as appropriate. In the area of Public Record Act or public disclosure requests, in the third quarter, we had 55 completed PRA disclosure inquiries. The work in this area is steady and ongoing. We do note that the workload is dependent upon the volume of public inquiries, and we expect work in this category to continue in the fourth quarter as public inquiries come in. In the area of administration and support of the Board Proceedings Department and Executive Office, members, as you'll recall, administrative assignments are typically requested by the Board Proceedings Division or Exec Office, covering various administrative or board meeting-related issues. In the last quarter, we had 2 such assignments, which we have completed. We continue to provide support to Board Proceedings Division and in the Executive Office on smaller matters as necessary. In the area of publications review, the Legal Department completed 29 legal reviews in the third quarter. These publications include items originated from the property tax and communication departments as well as other agency publications. We expect work in this category to continue in the fourth quarter as well. In the area of regulations, in the third quarter, as you know, we completed the rulemaking for 2 property tax rules and BOE's conflict of interest rule. We completed Regulation 301, Definition and General Principles. After the board adopted the rule in June of 2022, the staff submitted the rulemaking file to OAL, and OAL approved this rule with an effective date of August 25th, 2022. Regulation 905, Assessment of Electric Generation Facilities. After the board adopted the rule in 2022, staff submitted the rulemaking file to OAL in July, and OAL has approved this rule with an effective date of July 28th, 2022. The other regulation that I am pleased to announce that we have completed is Regulation 6001. This is the update to the board's conflict of interest schedules. And as you know, we received FPPC's approval on August 31st, 2022. OAL approved the rulemaking with an effective date of October 28th, 2022. So as of this coming year, 2023, we will be operating under our new conflict of interest schedules. With regards to our Prop 19 regulations, we continue to work toward make the emergency rules permanent. The board authorized staff in the third quarter to publish the notice of proposed regulatory action with other amendments. Staff submitted the rule to OAL to begin the 45-day comment period for the Proposition 19 regulations in September 2022. The first was the Property Tax Rule 462-520, exclusion from change in ownership intergenerational transfers, and this was to clarify, interpret, and make specific the provisions of Section 63.2 of the Revenue and Taxation Code. The second was the Property Tax Rule 462-540, change in ownership base year value transfers, to clarify, interpret, and make specific provisions of Revenue and Taxation Code 69.6. Both rules will remain effective until January 18th. Both emergency rules will be effective until January 18th, 2023. We anticipate bringing the rules before the board at the November meeting to begin the official process to make the emergency rules permanent. As we are entering the year-end quarter, I would like to update you on BOE's progress on our 2022 rulemaking calendar. There is one remaining rule on the 2022 rulemaking calendar, and that's Property Tax Rule 192, Property Tax Audit Selection. The proposed amendments to Rule 192 would clarify, interpret, and make specific the statutory changes to Revenue and Taxation Code 469. Staff anticipates making progress on this rule in the late quarter this year, awaiting an interested parties' notice to assessors for comments before beginning the rulemaking process. This may delay the rulemaking process, which will result in this rule being added to the 2023 rulemaking calendar. As you may figure, the last quarter of the year is not an opportune time to have an interested parties process, so we may push that off a little bit to get better participation. Finally, members, for the third quarter, the legal department issued a total of 9 legal opinions and memos, which include property tax technical advice opinions, internal and board meeting related chief counsel memoranda. We expect work in this category to continue in the fourth quarter as inquiries come in. In closing, I want to again extend my gratitude to the team for their outstanding work in the third quarter, especially given the fact that there's this state assessed appeals season going on, and my attorneys are very much involved in that as well. Members, this concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Najo. I just have a couple questions on the possessory interest opinion your department issued on October 11th. to several assessors, including Mr. Prang. Your opinion states that the individual rental units in a public housing project owned by a JPA or local government are taxable possessory interests, and they do not qualify for the welfare exemption because there is no statute or constitutional law exempting them. But then you go on to say at the BOE that has issued at least 2 prior legal opinions advising assessors not to tax units leased to low-income tenants in public housing projects. Since they and many other entities have relied on our opinions for the past 27 years, first, would it be best practice for the BOE and the assessors to seek legislation confirming this? And then second, are we at risk if someone said that they are entitled to the exemption for units rented to people who are above the low income level of Section 214, since the exemption doesn't really apply here?
So to your first question, the memo does talk about the rather thin support for the position that we've taken. As indicated in that memo, what we've done is we tried to be consistent with the historical practice of the BOE, which has been relied on for many decades by the assessors and other entities out there. That being said, it would be up to the assessors and this board if they desire to bring legislation to bring more support to that. As far as anything above low-income housing, not collecting possessory interest on those items, because that opinion is limited to those facts, it'd be hard to argue that there should be an exemption, if you will, for anything above that. So we would strongly recommend limiting that, and as we indicated, there's some caution to even relying on that.
So at the end of the day, I think it makes sense to, especially I'm looking at a building where they have like split rents, where they may be charging low income to some of the tenants and then market rate for others. I guess it's probably be legal for them to just prorate that at some point, and the assessors probably should take that up if in fact they are earmarking or working with some of those units for low-income folks.
Yep, thank you for that question, Member Vasquez. The challenge is really, it's very fact-specific. Because the JPAs have created a number of different scenarios and different structures, it's difficult for me to say at this point whether or not proration would be appropriate or what have you. It really would require kind of digging into the facts of the specific situation and very much working with the local assessor, because they're in a better position to kind of know where they're comfortable giving an exemption or not.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Follow-up question, if I could?
Please, yes, answer.
Because I think what Member Vasquez brings up is a great point, and to provide that clarity is really important. If you're counting on getting a welfare exemption and it's not coming through, and the project was based on low-income housing element to the project, are you saying that there are some cases where they're not getting the welfare exemption?
That's what I'm hearing, and yeah. I'm wondering if at some point, as we move forward, maybe we need an LTA to kind of give at least some direction to the assessors.
Yeah.
Because I'd hate to see some of these developers that are trying to do the right thing and providing affordable housing being dinged or not able to qualify for the exemption.
Right. And I mean, based on what we've learned in our workshop, a lot of those projects, sometimes it's a thin amount of revenue that makes a difference as to whether the project goes forward or not. So I'm supportive of getting that clarity.
Appreciate it.
And I see Deputy Director Young has come up, and he could provide a little bit more color commentary and details.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you, Board, for the opportunity to address this. I want to make the distinction that our legal opinion asked about a possessory interest issue. it is separate and aside from the welfare exemption. What the individuals that are tenants to these units built by or acquired by the JPAs, they do not qualify under the welfare exemption. It is two separate issues. So you are correct. There is not a whole lot of clarity here for not assessing a PI to a low-income tenant in one of these projects, but it is not a welfare issue. Mr. Nanjo nailed it and had it. It is actually addressed in the opinion that for clarity and legislation would probably be needed in order to settle these issues.
Can I get a question of clarification, if I could?
Yes.
What is the possessory interest in that particular case?
The possessory interest is a tax on a private individual's use of publicly owned property, real property. So if you use either a terminal in an airport, you are a rental car concessionaire, your private use of that is taxable. And the same concept applies to somebody who lives in government-owned property, be it a cabin in a national forest or in some cases, it is also applicable to somebody who lives in public housing or low-income housing. In that case, our board, the BOE, has a long history of saying that type of possession, where it's a low-income tenant living in a public housing unit, there should not be an assessment to the tenant themselves. The person who lives there should not get a tax bill.
Okay.
So it's a little bit-
And is Mr. Vasquez's question in reference to the tax credit to the owner or developer or whoever? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needs to be clarified, and, I mean, from a policy standpoint, you need that clarified so you can get the housing built.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I indicated, Member Gaines and Member Vasquez, with the chair's indulgence, the legal opinion of the legal department is very tied to a specific factual situation which was presented to us. The other thing is, our legal opinions do not have the force and effect of law. They are just advisory. So statutory law is controlling, and part of the challenge here is, as I mentioned to Member Vasquez, is a lot of these, the JPAs, these types of projects have a variety of different factual situations and various structures, and that very much makes a difference. So
Let me interject here real quick. So, colleagues, we actually had placed the issue, the possessory interest issue on the agenda for tomorrow to allow for meaningful discussion, and that's just because of the day is going to be long tomorrow. So I took it off the agenda to allow the discussion to occur at the November board meeting. So it is definitely coming.
Okay.
And so that by doing so, in November, we will be able to hear from all the stakeholders on this timely matter. There are a lot of people that want to engage with us on this topic. And so I want to temper the conversation today, reserve it for when it's noticed, which is in November. That will also allow our staff very adequate time to be prepared to present information to us, to answer all of our questions, but more importantly, take public comment and listen to our stakeholders. So I believe that the discussion in November will be very helpful in guiding this conversation. Now, with that said, I see Mr. Dronenberg has found his way back up to the dais, and we'll make sure I want to be able to recognize him if he's got any comments that he wants to
Well,
give.
just quickly clarify, it's important that for that meeting that you understand exemptions versus, which is based on, exemption is based on use, whereas what we're talking about, a possessory interest, is based on ownership. And whereas the welfare exemption and the college exemption, those are all use-based. And this is an exemption based on ownership. And what's a big problem and confusion is that there's too many names out there. There's low income, there's moderate income, there's workforce income, and there's high income. But the only one that anything's been written about is low income, and there's a court case on that, and you've got annotation on that. That one is not really in a lot of doubt. Everybody understands that one. But everybody else is trying to say, well, I've got moderate income housing, and that's what city councils want because they get points for that. It doesn't have to be low income to get points. It's creating housing, and so they get it for moderate income. And some of these developers are coming in and trying to get an exemption from the PI based on the fact that it's being used for housing, and there's a confusion in that. So a definition of the terms would be very helpful when you start to consider this. You'll be miles ahead of everybody else in the room.
You know, I appreciate it. I think you're hitting it on the nail because that's one of the issues we have specifically in Santa Monica, and you probably have it in some other areas in the state, where folks, like you mentioned, just because they're providing housing, they think they should get an exemption. And I disagree with that because it's not really meeting the needs of the affordable housing crisis that we're in.
Right.
Matter of fact, we have an abundance of high-end housing in Santa Monica that's vacant because they're trying to get $7,000 to $8,000 a month. I mean, and we shouldn't be providing an exemption or a tax credit for that. And I think you're hitting on a real good point. And I'm hoping when we bring this back up in November, Madam Chair, that we come up with some definitions and some terminology that we all agree upon. So moving forward, especially the development community out there, that I think, you know, they've been going on for the last 27 years based on our opinions. And like Member Gaines mentioned, you know, they put together these financial packets assuming they're going to get this tax credit, and now we're saying, nope, it's not going to happen.
And
we need to be careful with that.
They've deceived some of these city councils, too. I mean, it's I'm not going to get into your next month's meeting, but I will be here.
Appreciate it. we need your input on this because I know you have a lot of history on this.
There's a lot of snakes in this pile here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nanjo, is there anything else to your report?
No, Chair Cohen, thank you very much. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Before we hear from you, Mr. Young, I want to go to Ms. Cicchetti, who's going to do public comment.
AT&T moderator, is there anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this matter?
Thank you. Let me check real quick here. Again, it is 10 to make a comment. Please press 10 at this time. And giving it a minute, so far nobody in queue.
Thank you. The next item?
Just a minute, let me just double check with my team over here to see how they're holding up. Do we need to take a break? No? Everyone's okay? All right, thank you. We can continue.
Perfect.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Property Tax Deputy Director's Report, K4A, Operational Updates, report on the status of pending and upcoming projects, activities, and departmental issues, including Prop 19, implementation, actions, and guidance, letters to the assessors, appraisal training and certification, assessment practices surveys, and state assessed property. These items will be presented by Mr. Young and his team.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning, Chair Cohen, honorable members of the board. David Young here for the record, Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. Today, I will give you an update on our department's efforts to implement Prop 19. So far, we continue to monitor the progress of Property Tax Rules 462.520 and 462.540 as it works its way through the Office of Administrative Law for their review. As Mr. Nanjo already reported earlier, we anticipate that coming before the board next month. Correct. Second, staff is reviewing the need for any additional forms that may be required by Prop 19. We've already basically created about 7 new ones and updated a whole list of existing forms for that. So we're doing a second review to see if there's anything else that is currently needed. And also to chime in on Board Member Vasquez's question earlier on about Prop 19 implementation, our experiences for the Property Tax Department has been very similar to that of the TRA. As you well know, in 2021, we had many board meetings where people came in and provided testimony on the effects of Prop 19 on their ability to transfer property. By and far, the base year value transfer inquiries have been pretty, actually, it's been okay because Prop 19 expanded that benefit. Most of our inquiries have come on the intergenerational transfers. Prop 19 did 3 fundamental things to the ability to transfer property. 1, it limited it to only residential property. 2, it not only limited to residential property, but it has to be the primary residence of both the transferor and the transferee. And then 3rd, even if it is the primary residence of the transferor and transferee, and by the way, family farms does qualify as a primary residence, so it limited the benefit to $1 million. So it shrank down that benefit. So you can only transfer a certain type of property. It has to be the primary residence of both the transferor and transferee. And even when you qualify under those conditions, you're limited to basically $1 million above your factor base year value. So it did limit that. Other than inquiries that dealt with the administration of how do you apply for this and how do you get this type of benefit, most of them had to do with why is the benefit now smaller or less than what it used to be. So your question is it kind of what the voters expected? At least for the ones that are calling us, the answer is no. So, okay. Finally, our efforts in implementing Prop 19, we of course continue to answer questions from stakeholders. We're still getting a very steady workload on that, and we continue our efforts in reviewing our existing guidance. So we're continuously making sure that stuff is current and catching the stuff that is not, and updating that part.
Thank you. I do have a question.
Of course.
I don't know if you will know this answer. It might be a little out of your lane.
Okay.
But when Proposition 19 was advertised to voters, it was advertised of steady revenue for firefighters. I'm wondering, do we know what that revenue stream has been for the last year that this legislation has been in operation?
I do not have firsthand knowledge of that.
Do you know how or where we could capture that information?
Well, our partners, the California Department of Tax and Fees, is actually charged with basically keeping a track of the revenue lost from the base year transfer, the expansion of that benefit to all 58 counties, and from basically 1 time to 3 times, the revenue lost from that, and balancing it with the revenue gain from the contraction of the intergenerational transfer. And there is a mechanism in which there is a fund set up to make at least whole or partly in whole for the counties that have lost revenue due to the expansion of the base year transfers. They would probably have the primary information on that, and they report that on a yearly basis, I believe. So,
do you know what time of the year they would report this information out?
Actually, I do not, but
Okay.
I can make some inquiries and check.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of
All
course.
right. Pardon the intrusion on your presentation. You can continue.
Of course. That actually concludes my presentation on the implementation of Prop 19. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Mr. Vasquez.
Just a quick one.
Of course.
Thank you for confirming what I pretty much thought and what I'm hearing out there in terms of Prop 19. that you're right. I think most of the voters, even organized bodies that were behind this, didn't understand the dynamics of it, the final product that actually came out and was on the ballot. But you kind of touched on the welfare exemption piece.
Yes.
And how's it going in terms of streamlining that process?
I believe I made a report last week on the improvement process. It's been pretty much steady since then. We have seen improvements in both our turnaround time and how complete packages are when we actually receive them, and both of those have been pivotal in our ability to actually turn around and review and approve, or in some cases deny, these types of applications. The other thing that has been immensely helpful that Ms. Renati, our Chief Deputy Director, has touched on also is we are now getting to the point where we are more staffed than we have been in recent history. And the synergy of a better review and approval process, better completed and accurate applications, and basically more hands and eyes to review and to work these have actually been very productive for the department.
What do you see the next steps in that process in terms of streamlining this thing?
Wow, the next steps, of course, as we hired folks,
Right.
that our next improvements will probably be from the training of staff in their ability to learn, execute, review these things a little bit more. As always, we, with our partners in CDTFA, our system is relatively new on that, and there may be opportunities for an improvement in our computer system, in our tracking system. So we'll find synergies in our processing, our tracking, give more real-time look into how things are moving through our system electronically.
Thank you.
Of course.
Mr. Gaines?
Yeah, thank you. Can you provide more clarity on the exemption aspect of Prop 19? I know there's a lot of discussion about the ag exemption, and my understanding was that was $1 million per parcel, plus was it the initial purchase price?
It's,
Or-
you are correct. Prop 19 fundamentally changed the intergenerational transfer. It was followed up by legislation, AB 539, that basically added some statute to it and included the family farm aspect to it.
Mhm.
And it is $1 million per parcel of a qualified family farm.
Great.
So
Does that exemption apply anywhere else?
That
That $1 million
per parcel
Yeah.
only applies to family farms.
That's
So,
it?
yeah. So-
Okay, all right. That's what I thought. I want to
Okay.
make sure I didn't misunderstand what you had said earlier.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay.
Well, I'd like to ask Ms. Stowers, you don't have to come to the table. I just want to ask that you ask what I asked of Mr. Young and direct it towards you, and that is if you could report back to the board on the collection of revenue that has been collected since Prop 19's passage. Mr. Young said that this information is collected and housed at CDTFA, and so maybe you could just inquire a little bit and either ask CDTFA to come back and report to us next month, or you report back on their behalf. And we can work with you a little bit more to fine-tune that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Please continue.
Of course, thank you. So before I turn it over for the next two presentations to Ms. Lumsden, I would like to recognize on behalf of the Property Tax Department her valuable contributions over the last 14 years she's been with the department. So her contributions have been tremendous, especially in the last several years, where she's played a pivotal role in basically restructuring the Property Tax Department's CAPD. It is with a mixed heart. I'm happy for her, but sad for our loss that we celebrate her retirement. She leaves not only with 14 years with the board, but she came here with 18 years with the county assessor's office. So in total, 32 years of property tax administration walks out the door with her. So thank you for the opportunity to recognize Ms. Lumsden on her retirement. And with that, Ms. Lumsden.
Thank you, Mr. Young, for those kind words. I appreciate that. Good morning, Chair Cohen and honorable board members. I'm Patty Lumsden, Chief of the County Assessed Properties Division, and today I will be providing you with a brief report on letters to assessors. And attached to the agenda this month is a memo on letters to assessors, which provides a list of all the LTAs that have been issued since our last board meeting, as well as a link to the BOE's website with all of the LTAs that have been issued to date. As of the date of the attached memo, BOE staff have issued a total of 47 LTAs during calendar year 2022, and 6 of those LTAs have been issued since our last board meeting. 2 of those LTAs were issued for assessment practices survey reports for Los Angeles County and for San Francisco City and County. We also issued an LTA that announces the annual interest component of the capitalization rate to be used in the valuation of enforceably restricted lands assessed under Revenue and Taxation Code Sections 423, 423.5, and 426. In accordance with Section 423 of the Revenue and Taxation Code, the BOE is required to determine and announce this interest component no later than October 1st each year. We also issued another LTA announcing the annual interest component of the capitalization rate to be used in the valuation of qualified historical properties as specified under Revenue and Taxation Code Sections 439 through 439.4. Revenue and Taxation Code Section 439.2 requires the Board of Equalization to annually determine and announce this interest component no later than October 1st each year. And then finally, we did issue 2 letters to assessors to provide notice to the public regarding amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title 18, Section or Property Tax Rule 462.520, which was the exclusion from change in ownership, intergenerational transfers, and also Section 462.540, change in ownership, base year value transfers. As Mr. Young mentioned previously, the Office of Administrative Law posted the amendments on its website on September 30th, 2022, which began the 45-day comment period. A public hearing regarding the proposed regulatory actions will be held at 10 a.m. on November 17th, 2022. Interested parties may present or submit oral or written statements, arguments, or contentions at the hearing regarding the adoption of these 2 property tax rules. Copies of the notices were also attached to those LTAs. And that will conclude my report on letters to assessors, and I'm available to answer questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Lumsden. And I was just wondering, I know we're going to be discussing this a little bit more in detail tomorrow with the assessors, especially on Prop 19, but I was just curious from your staff's perspective, do you think our rules have helped assessors who with this whole guidance on Prop 19, or are we still receiving quite a bit of questions from their offices?
Well, I would like to think that these property tax rules have made it a little bit more, what's the right word? I mean, they give examples and ways to interpret the code sections. They're helping to implement those code sections. We also have Revenue and Taxation Code Section 63.2, as well as Section 69.6, which also help implement that Prop 19. We're going to continue to get questions for probably years to come. I mean, we still get questions about Proposition 13, so I mean, it's something that's going to evolve as time goes on, and more questions will come up and different scenarios and ways to do things, and I think we'll be seeing this for quite some time, but I definitely think that these property tax rules have assisted in implementing and making it more clear. Clarity was the word I was looking for, to clarify some of these interpretations of, of the code sections and the Proposition 19 itself. So, yeah, I'd like to think that they've helped quite a bit. And if I could say one more thing, the other thing too is in putting these property tax rules together, I know our legal department worked with the property tax department as well as with the CAA and getting these, together and asking for comments, and then plus the public as well. And so I think that they were put through a pretty good interested parties process in, putting them forward. So.
No, thank you. And once again, just wanted to thank you for your service, and specifically you and your staff for dealing with especially these training classes despite COVID, during that whole COVID period. I really appreciate that.
Yes, well, thank you very much. And my staff, like I said, worked really hard in making that all happen. So I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Mr. Gaines, any Mr. Schaefer? No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McCool?
Oh, Ms. Lumsden, I believe you have
Oh,
one
sorry.
more
One more?
report? For-
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Young.
Okay.
Again, Chair Cohen, honorable board members, I'm Patty Lumsden, Chief of the County Assessed Properties Division, and I will now be giving you a report on the BOE's Appraisal Training and Certification Program. And posted to our website is the Appraiser Training and Certification Schedule for 22-23 fiscal year, and which we have scheduled 33 classes covering 8 courses. And as I've mentioned in past meetings, this is more than what we've offered in the past. Last year, we were only able to offer 23 classes, covering only 5 courses. So we've definitely made improvements from last year in what we've been providing. And in addition to that, this fiscal year, we were also able to offer both in-person classes both in-person conducted classes as well as virtually conducted classes. So far for 22-23 fiscal year, we've completed 9 of those classes, and 3 were completed since our last board meeting. So we offered Course 3, which is the Residential Appraisal Procedures, taught in person by BOE staff and was held in Bakersfield, which is in Kern County. We also taught Course 2A, which is the Replacement Cost Estimating of Residential Structures. This was taught virtually by BOE staff through Microsoft Office Teams. And then we also offered Course 120, Investment Mathematics and Financial Calculators, which was taught in person by Los Angeles County staff member, and it was taught in San Bernardino, which of course is in San Bernardino County. And that will conclude my training certification report, and I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Lumsden, you said you just had courses in San Bernardino County. All the others were in Sacramento?
We held one in Bakersfield, which is in Kern County, and we've had some other ones offered previously. One was in Alameda County in Oakland, and then the other one was in San Diego County, held in San Diego.
The ones we have in, most of them would be held here in Sacramento.
No, actually, we do try to spread them out throughout the state, trying to pick locations where we think we can touch, several different counties so that they can, it's not so expensive to send their staff to, is kind of our goal.
Do the people attending here in Sacramento, are they all local, or do some come from Santa Clara or different places?
Mostly it's local, but they do come from other areas that are, semi-close by. But, I mean, they can send them from wherever throughout the state. It just depends. And typically, I found that our BOE offered location does tend to receive several counties, whereas some of the other locations that we pick out probably only reach out to probably, I want to say, like 3 to 4 counties at a time. And so it just depends. It really depends on the timing and the availability of the assessor staff to be able to attend those courses.
That was a very fine report, and I appreciate the way you've handled it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, can you clarify how many classes are being offered this year?
So for fiscal year, because we actually do our
Fiscal,
classes on
yeah,
a fiscal
fiscal,
year. I just want to
yeah.
make sure.
Thank you.
We're offering 33 classes, and they cover 8 different courses.
Yeah, that's great. And it was 23 last year.
Yes, 23 last year, and 5 covering 5 different courses.
And do we know how many classes we've offered historically on a per-year basis?
Well, I do have some data I presented at some of our other board meetings that we've had. And these statistics that I do happen to have with me are based upon a calendar year. So it's a little bit different, but so far in 2022, the calendar year 2022, which of course is not over yet, we've already taught 18 classes and to 511 students. 17 of those were taught by BOE instructors. In 2021, we were able to teach 18 classes, which is, like I said, that's where we're at right now, and we still have more classes to teach the rest of this year. And then we taught a total number of students of 578, but keep in mind those were all taught virtually. And then for BOE instructors, we had 18 BOE instructor classes and no additional instructors from other counties, whereas this year we've so far had one other instructor from another county teach for us.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I just want to recognize you because you're going out in a boom here.
That's what I was hoping
we've got
for.
33 classes this year.
Yeah, that's what we were. That's
Right,
what
so
we were working
went
towards.
from 23 to 33. And we've been talking about trying to make sure we're reaching out to our county assessors and their staff. I mean, that's been an issue and a complaint when I was first elected, and yet we're seeing this great progress. So I just wanted to recognize you and thank you for all that effort.
Thank you.
I want to actually add to that. Our 33 classes in one fiscal year it's been a high point for BOE for as far as I've been here. So historically, for 22 years, it's pretty much a high point.
Wonderful.
So yes, thank you, Patty.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So she's entitled to like a batting crown, or what was that?
I'll have one made.
Okay, thank you.
With that, Mr. McCool, I believe you're up next then.
Thank you. Good morning again, Chair Cohen and honorable members. My name is Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. Today, I will provide a short update on the status of ongoing work in our division. As you all know, SAPD staff have worked diligently on state assessed appeals the last few months. Earlier today, the board adopted joint recommendations for 8 petitions, including several penalty abatement requests. The first round of appeals conferences also took place recently, and our staff have spent a considerable amount of time preparing for those conferences. Additional appeals conferences will be held in November. In addition to our continued work on appeals, SAPD staff have also been preparing to mail the annual private railroad car tax bills to all private railroad car assessees. These bills reflect the private railroad car roll that the board adopted in July. The bills were prepared and mailed late last week ahead of the statutory deadline. The tax is due on December 10th, and the revenue collected from the tax goes to the state's general fund. That concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. McCool? Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our report.
Great, let's public comment.
Gotcha, the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, can you please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this item?
Certainly, thank you. And again, it's 10 to make a comment. Again, please press 10 on your telephone keypad. And currently nobody in queue.
Thank you. Let's continue with the agenda. Let's
We
call the
can
next-
continue with the agenda if you'd like, yes.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Legislative Research and Statistics Division Chief's Report, K5A, Legislative Issues, Update on Administrative and Program-Related Legislative Bills Impacting the BOE. This item will be presented by Mr. Weatherby.
Thank you. So good afternoon, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer, and honorable members of the board. This is Dustin Weatherby, Chief of the Legislative Research and Statistics Division. So attached to the PAN is a summary on final actions on legislation affecting the Board of Equalization this legislative year. The first bill is Assembly Bill 1933 by Assemblymember Friedman, which was signed by the governor on September 28th, which provides a property tax welfare exemption for lien dates occurring on or after January 1st, 2023 and before January 1st, 2028, if that property is owned and operated by a nonprofit corporation and is organized and operated for the specific and primary purpose of building and rehabilitating single or multi-family residential units. Some or all of these units must be owner-occupied and sold only to and purchased by first-time home buyers that are low income. The second bill is Senate Bill 989 by Senator Hertzberg that was signed by the governor on September 28th, which allows taxpayers to defer payment of local property taxes with penalty and interest relief if they have claimed a Proposition 19 property tax relief with the county assessor and have requested deferment with the county assessor within 1 calendar year, but before January 1st, 2024, within receiving the first tax bill for the property. So this bill only applies to Los Angeles County, but other counties may comply by adopting a resolution of the Board of Supervisors after the board has consulted with various local elected officials. And finally, the Senate Bill 518 by Senator Laird. This was signed by the governor on September 28th, and it requires the BOE, upon request, to provide confidential taxpayer information on the wine grower tax return and schedule for returns filed on and after January 1st, 2023, unless that taxpayer is a natural person. Returns will include an opt-out box for taxpayers who do not wish to have their confidential taxpayer information shared publicly. So will conclude my presentation on this item, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez.
One quick one. You mentioned Hertzberg's bill on this deferment piece. Do we have or do you have a guesstimation what kind of revenue loss? Because obviously that's going to hurt some of the counties, especially in LA, the entities that rely on that income.
No, I do not. I'll just echo the comments by Mr. Young earlier. Any revenue loss would be attributable and housed by the CDTFA.
Thanks.
All right, on this end.
Yeah,
Mr.
can you go
Gaines?
through that explanation again in terms of what the bill does?
For 989?
Yes.
Okay, so essentially, if a taxpayer has bought and sold a property and they claim a base year value transfer under Prop 19, and they request that with the county assessor, and they request a deferment, they have 1 calendar year to request that deferment, but before January 1st, 2024. So if the base year value transfer isn't processed in time, they can defer the payment of those taxes until the county assessor has time to process that package.
Okay.
So it just provides a little taxpayer assistance, because what was occurring is in some counties, taxpayers would sell their principal home, buy a new home in a different county maybe, and the county assessors hadn't processed those claims yet, and they would receive a full property tax bill for the value of the property. So
Right, that hit the
taxpayers would
news,
go
didn't it?
from a low base year
Yeah.
value to suddenly very high
Yeah.
one. So I
remember
was just trying to provide a little flexibility for assessors to catch up on some backlog.
hearing a story about that in the media. Maybe there are more than one, but it sounds like, I don't think there'd be, to Mr. Vasquez's question, I don't think there'd be much of a revenue hit, would it? Because it's just giving an extra year for them to figure it out and get that money to the taxpayer, that credit?
Yes, in a way. But there will be some counties that will inevitably possibly lose revenue depending on where the transfers occur.
True, but that's true with Prop 19 anyway. So he's just trying to provide relief.
Yeah, this would just delay revenues.
Again,
Yeah,
Mr.
okay.
Young, we'll recognize him.
Thank you. No, Mr. Weatherby has that correct, and yes, Mr. Gaines, Board Member Gaines, it's basically a delay in collecting the revenue. So if there is revenue loss, it's only the present value thereof, the collection. But the counties should basically square up specifically with this change in 989. So yeah, it should be.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, thank you. Just a second, Ms. Stowers, I was wondering if this revenue has impacted our department, our agency in any way?
Have the base year.
So has the changes in this law impacted our business as an agency, the changes in the law?
Has the changes in the law as respect to Prop 19 or
Yes.
the Hirschberg bill? Prop 19?
Well, I mean, both, they're companion, so,
Well, as far as Prop 19, absolutely, we've spent a great deal of time implementing it. And we use personnel service years to do it, so, yes.
okay.
The bill, no, because that's the workload of the county assessor. It's their job to determine the base year value calculation and send the supplemental bill if necessary. So that's not our work, no impact to BOE.
Thank you. So colleagues, I think what I'm going to do is make a recommendation that we have the executive director evaluate all statutory changes and report back to us the impact that it has had on the agency. So for instance, are we able to easily absorb the additional responsibilities, or do we need to staff up? These are all changes, so we can continue to work together on that report back.
Question of clarification?
Yes.
Could that also include counties, county assessors' offices?
That's a good question, yeah. We could certainly widen it.
I'm
yeah,
just
and
thinking,
have the county
you know,
assessors.
what is their impact? We work so closely with them.
So this is not something that's going to be turned around very quickly, obviously, connecting with at least all 58 county assessors, and certainly those that will be able to participate in the discussion. But again, I just want to emphasize the changes in this legislative session. That's it. I don't want to go back 5 years, even last year, just in this legislative session. Just curious to know how these changes have impacted our ability to do our job.
Okay, will you restate the request?
Yes, so I just wanted to make a recommendation that we have the executive director evaluate all statutory changes and report back to us the impact that it has had on the agency. So, I'm sorry, I forget your name.
Mr. Weatherby.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherby. Mr. Weatherby comes in on a monthly basis, and he reports to us the changes, things that are going on in the legislature that has an impact on the Board of Equalization. I just want to know, this entire session, how have those legislative changes impacted us?
Okay.
So question of clarification, so would that be fiscal and labor, or?
Yes, that includes all of the
Yeah,
above.
Okay, that'd be good to know.
Mr. Vasquez?
Yes, I was wondering if, in that information gathering piece, that if they could include, I know the governor just recently signed 3 affordable housing bills. I think it was AB 2011, SB 886, and AB 2221, which all 3 of them pretty much are going to have an impact in terms of uses, from commercial spaces now to residential uses. And I'm wondering the financial impact that would have. And I don't know if that's something, once again, it's probably CDTFA that collects that, and if it is, if we can gather that and include that'd be, I think that'd be helpful.
So,
I see looks of confusion. What is so confusing? Ms. Stowers, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to you, Mr.
No, I was
Weathersby.
clear on your direction.
Mhm.
You're asking for the bills that were signed. You want analysis of the impact on the agency,
Correct.
whether it's workload or revenue.
Right.
What, for everything that was signed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
clear on what you're asking
Okay.
for.
And
Yeah.
on the
Well,
county assessor's office as well.
And
as
now that's the part, for us to survey the workload on the county assessors, we can ask.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, we
We're
can ask.
asking. And also, I'm asking, making this request with the understanding that you probably won't have anything for us by next month. Because it's going to take some time to talk to the assessors and to assess. Now it's Mr. Gaines' request that is asked for the assessors to be included in this. Mr. Gaines, do you have any further other?
Yeah, my thinking was, could we have the president of the association, could they give us an update in terms of what the impact is? I'm thinking specifically of Prop 19. because their impact, I think, is much more heavy than our impact, and it'd be nice to just have an update in terms of how they're dealing with that.
Okay.
I mean, they're tracking property that's changing hands. I mean, that's going to involve, I think they're going to have to hire a lot more staff. And it'd be nice for us to just be in tune with that as the BOE.
I could check with them, and perhaps that's something that we can discuss tomorrow, since Prop 19 is on
The agenda.
Great.
if-
Wonderful.
If I may.
Yeah,
say.
thank you.
Mr. Weathersby, did you have questions or?
Well, I was going to answer Board Member Vasquez's question
Please
on
do.
several of those bills. So any of the bills that do not directly affect the welfare exemption when it comes to low-income or affordable housing, the BOE doesn't track. So I couldn't give you any information on what the potential revenue impacts are for those bills. Depending on how the bills are written and whether it's a low-income housing tax credit versus other issues, that's other state agencies that administer those bills. So if it's under the jurisdiction of the Housing and Community Development Agency, the information may be available on their website.
Thank you. Mr. Young, anything you want to add?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, Mr. Gaines.
I'm wondering if maybe that would help if you get an analysis through the legislature. So they'll do committee analysis on legislation, and they might be able to provide the information you're looking at because they're supposed to look at it fiscally too.
No, I think that would be helpful, yeah.
So are you asking Mr. Vasquez to do that? I don't, are you just making a statement? What exactly are you
Well, I
directing
think-
Mr. Vasquez, or suggesting Mr. Vasquez?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
We could maybe follow up and get those analyses that you could then, you know. they could-
Analyses for the legislation that was been passed in the last legislative session that impact the Board of Equalization.
Yeah,
Mr. Weathersby, is that something that
because we don't have the data, but they do a bill analysis, right?
Well, we
Under-
can, let's do this. We
So-
have made our requests known. Ms. Stowers, you and I, we can work together. And if you want to keep me out of it, just because of Bagley Keene, you can work directly with Mr. Gaines on this aspect of the request. It sounds like there's two requests that are happening here. I'm looking for something separate than what Mr. Gaines is looking for. So for the analysis that you're
Yeah, that's
looking
fine.
for in the bill, and the bills and the pieces of
Yeah,
legislation have been
and Member
passed.
Vasquez.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
No, that'd be helpful.
I will work with you, Ms. Chair Cohen, Mr. Vasquez. I will follow up with you to get clarification on what you're looking for. Does not appear there's going to be a BOE analysis or impact. As Mr. Weatherby said, it's another agency that's going to be charged with administering the new laws. But let me get clarification on what your ask is.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's keep moving forward.
Let's go, we're going to go to the AT&T moderator before we finish this item. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this matter.
Thank you. Please press 10 at this time if you'd like to make a public comment. Again, it's 10 at this time. And no comments in queue at this time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. So there's no action taken on those particular items that we heard. They were informational. And at this time, it's 12:15. I'd like to break for 1 hour lunch.
We just have a few items, but yes, we
It's
can.
true, we do have a few more items. I mean, if people want to continue to go forward, we can, but I want to be respectful of the staff. Nobody wants to make a decision? All right, I'll make a decision, we'll keep going.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is Public Policy Hearing, M1, Proposition 19, Implementation. There are no planned staff reports or external speakers for this agenda item for this month's meeting. However, persons who wish to address the board on this topic as a public comment may do so. AT&T moderator, we have no one who's come forward or no written comments on this matter. So I'll go to the AT&T moderator on that.
Thank you, and it again is 10 to make a comment. Please press 10 at this time. And currently no comments.
The AT&T moderator, okay, I've already done that. Can I just take one moment?
Yes, please, you may.
I apologize. We do have a public comment, but it's
Okay.
on the next, it's on the next item. It's on the next item.
All right, well,
Excuse
let's
me.
go to the next item.
Public Policy Hearing M2, Impact of Public Calamities on Property Tax Administration, County Boards of Equalization, Assessment Appeal Boards, AAB, Remote Hearings. There are no planned staff reports or external speakers for this agenda item for this month's meeting. However, persons who wish to address the board on this topic as a public comment may do so. We have no written comments or anyone in the audience who'd like to make a comment, so I'm going to go to the AT&T moderator.
Please do.
AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this matter at this time.
And if so, please press 10 at this time. Again, it's 10. And nobody in queue.
The next item on the agenda is N, public comment on matters not on the agenda. Persons who wish to address the Board of Equalization regarding items not on the agenda may do so under this item on the agenda. Please note that the board cannot take action on items not on the agenda. However, the board can schedule issues raised by the public for consideration at future meetings. We do have a written comment. I have no one in the audience, so we'll go to the AT&T moderator first. AT&T moderator, do we have anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment at this time?
In public comments, please press 10. Currently no comments in queue.
The public comment that came in writing before this meeting on our webpage is from Kathy Brousseau. Hi, I wanted to know if it was true that persons over the age of 65 does not have to pay property taxes in California. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
Alrighty. Our last item is closing remarks.
All right, thank you very much. So, in closing remarks, what I'd like to do is just make the notion that we adjourn our meeting in honor of Miss Rosemary Kinney, who was... What's going on?
Nothing.
Okay. On behalf of the board, I'd like to express our sincere condolences regarding the passing of Miss Rosemary Kinney. As stated earlier in our meeting, in the Executive Director's report, she worked 28 years and was well known throughout the state as a preeminent property tax legislative analyst and a valued member of our BOE family. Her incredible spirit, heart for others, and valuable contributions to the property tax community friendship will be deeply missed. We extend our thoughts and prayers to her husband, Dean, who served as Executive Director of the Board of Equalization and as Chief of the Property Tax Division. So to the entire Kinney family, they have given a lot to this organization, and we are eternally grateful. Thank you. Colleagues, I don't know if there's any other closing remarks. If not, I think we can close this meeting.
We're going to recess this
could I
meeting.
And we're going to thank you. We'll recess this meeting for our schedule tomorrow.
Just one comment, reference to the caller. Maybe she was I'm wondering if she was referencing base year value, which is Prop 19, which would go into effect at age 55.
Thank you for the acknowledgement of the public comment. Thank you for all that acknowledged the Kinney family, and we are in recess till tomorrow. Thank you.